What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 4MHA, Chapter 76. Chi Feng doesn't doubt that Sister Ying's dream will come true. It's just that Chi Feng can't figure out how alien creatures will fall into the earth with meteorites. Normally, there is no such thing. The aliens are too far away in this world, but since Inoue Sakura can dream of such a disaster, it means that it may still happen. Sister Ying, how many times have you had this dream? Chi Feng must ask the details. He remembers the last time Sister Ying said that she dreamed of a fire a dozen times before it became a real disaster. The first time, but I feel very real, just like the real scene. Inoue Sakura said with some fear. She had a weird dream just now after squinting for a while. She was very afraid that this dream would become a reality.
Chi Feng frowned. It seems that things are not that simple. Before all the unknown has happened, he must improve his strength, otherwise it will be difficult to save if the disaster strikes.
Don't worry about Sister Ying, you will be fine if you sleep well. Chi Feng comforted, and he waited for Inoue Ying to fall asleep before returning to the room. The system, how to turn on the storage function. Chi Feng asked the system in his mind. So far, he can only store system items in the system warehouse, but not external items. As a result, there is no place to put his Dark Knight Legend suit. He can only hide.
The system's answer is very simple, 1000 save points.
Chi Feng gritted his teeth. In addition to the 500 points he earned tonight, he also saved 600 rescue points. Now that the function of storing external items is turned on, Chi Feng can only agree, otherwise he will not be able to carry all the equipment on his back. It's too eye-catching. Turn it on. Chi Feng directly let the system deduct 1000 rescue points and turned on the storage function of external items.
Soon Chi Feng realized that there was an extra room in his mind, about 20 square meters, not very big. After understanding the system, Chi Feng finally understood that he could only use rescue points to increase the storage space, 1000 rescue points plus 10 square meters. Chi Feng has no dissatisfaction with this. It is not difficult for him to earn salvation points now. Apart from the obstacles of professional heroes and police officers, he is still very easy to earn salvation points. Transferring the Dark Knight Legend suit hidden somewhere directly to the space warehouse, Chi Feng nodded with satisfaction. This is much more convenient. Not only that, but he can also store some snacks and food, so he won't be hungry when he travels a distance to die of thirst. 3 days have come, and the Maritime Exchange meeting is officially launched, and the boat departs on time at 8 p.m. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi.
Chi Feng arrived at the port by car, and without careful observation, he could see a huge cruise ship floating on the sea not far away, magnificent.
Looking around, Chi Feng found that he was the only one who came by taking a taxi. The others seemed to be figures with faces and faces, all dressed in fashion and in various poses. Most of them are private cars or special cars. Chi Feng has seen many luxury cars and many men accompanied by beautiful women.
Chi Feng just took a few glances and then ignored him, and walked directly to the direction of the cruise ship.
At this time, he was already the identity of the Legend of the Night, with a long sword hanging on his back. When passing by the crowd, many people consciously stepped aside. After all, those who dare to hang their weapons behind their backs so blatantly these days are not so simple. Please show your ticket. A woman in professional attire stopped Chi Feng at the entrance and said with a smile.
No matter how weird Chi Feng dresses up, don't want to mess around in this kind of place. Although the Master Ruyun here is just a receptionist, she is not afraid of anyone.
Chi Feng took out the ferry ticket from his arms, and the female receptionist took a look at it and said respectfully. Please, your room is at number 808 on the 5th floor, I wish you a good time. Chi Feng said thank you and boarded the big cruise ship. He thought about other guests and found that there were few people who made the woman polite. It seems that the status of the Quirk guy is not low, and he can get this. VIP boat tickets. After arriving on the 5th floor, Chi Feng quickly found room 808. After receiving the room card, he went in and found that it was extremely luxurious. There is a large bathtub in the room of more than 100 square meters, and various facilities are available. Just a beauty. That's right, this ferry ticket is not lost. Chi Feng smiled cheerfully. At this time, there was a sweet voice in the room. Dear VIP, there is a cafeteria on the 3rd floor of this cruise ship. Please enjoy it. Chi Feng happened to be a little hungry, and the exchange meeting did not start until 9 o'clock, and there was 1 hour left. Coming to the entrance of the 3rd floor, Chi Feng saw a person lining up to enter. It seemed that he had to spend money to eat in. When it was Chi Feng's turn, he showed his room card, and the man said politely, VIP, you don't need to pay, you can go in and enjoy it directly. Thank you for that. Chi Feng took back his room card and walked into the restaurant. This thing is really good, and there is no money for eating. Looking at the dazzling array of food, Chi Feng swallowed. To be honest, he has never been to this kind of place since he came to the island country, and he has not eaten too many good things. He remembers the best one to eat except for Sister Ying. Aside from that meal, it was the seafood celebrity that Pingyuan Shangda had eaten with. Chi Feng looked around, his consciousness swept out, and he found that there was no camera. What's the matter? But when I think about it, I'm relieved. The people here are generally of high quality and don't know how to do anything in the restaurant, so there is no need to install surveillance. Although Chi Feng has quality, after all, he is slightly different from the people here. After seeing so many delicious things, he has decided to get some food for Sister Ying. If he eats by himself, then he can eat enough here, but there is still a Sister Ying in the family. Even if someone says that he has no quality and his moral character is not good, he will take it back and feed it to Sister Ying. Women, they just like desserts or those that look good. Chi Feng will naturally not miss it. He first took a few plates and filled it with food and then found a place by the window to sit down. At this time the boat had started. But because it is night, the scenery outside is not very clear. Chi Feng didn't come to enjoy the scenery either. After eating all the food on the plate, he made another plate and placed it on the table. Only then did he get up and start wandering around the table where the food was placed. The guests here are a little speechless when they see Chi Feng dressed up. They have a big sword and a helmet after eating. Don't have a problem with this person. But what surprised Chi Feng was that the guests on these cruise ships didn't seem to recognize him. He remembered that the photos of the new equipment of Underworld Legend were exposed on the internet. How could no one recognize him? At this moment, Chi Feng saw an acquaintance who walked in from the entrance with extremely dazzling blue hair, and he was not charged either. The blue-haired youth didn't seem to recognize Chi Feng, but gave Chi Feng a slightly surprised look in his eyes.
Chapter 77. Lan Junxian glanced at Chi Feng in surprise. This black guy gave him a familiar feeling, but he couldn't tell where he was familiar. Perhaps it was his own illusion.
The blue-haired youth walked to a corner alone. After a few minutes, a well-dressed little lowly who was only 1.5 meters tall and brought 2 plates came to the opposite side of the blue-haired youth. After putting down the food plate, he pouted and said, "Alan, why are you so lazy? I have to do this kind of thing?" Obviously this little lowly is a bit dissatisfied with the blue-haired man in front of her, but her tone of voice is not angry. She seems to be acting like a baby. "Aren't these all voluntary, Xiaomeng?" The blue-haired young man smiled, raised his hand and patted Xiao Lolita's double ponytail. Chi Feng's heart was drawn when he saw it. How could the relationship between these two guys look so weird? "Alan, I will be angry if you do this again," Lolita named Xiaomeng said with her arms akimbo. The blue-haired youth said kindly, "Hurry up and eat your food, little dwarf." Huh. Xiao Meng jumped into the chair, and actually sat down and started eating. Chi Feng shook his head and looked around with his spiritual sense. When no one thought he was here, he suddenly put his hand in his hand and put a large plate of mousse cake into the space warehouse, then moved a few steps to the side and used it again. Around the hand, some biscuits and fruits are loaded into the space warehouse. "Hey, why is there so little food here? Who eats so fast?" Someone passed by Chi Feng and suddenly found that the food here was so pitiful, and I don't know who took it all out. Chi Feng pretended to be unaware and walked away. At this moment, the puzzled man looked at Chi Feng and asked, "This friend, do you know who did this?"
Chi Feng shook his head and left without looking back. The man cut his voice. "What's the pretense?" Chi Feng once again moved to other places. As long as it is purely handmade food, he has all the food that cannot be bought by the outside world. This opportunity is not always available.
Looking at the food in the space warehouse, Chi Feng felt that it was almost done and then left. "Alan, why is that guy dressed so strangely?" After Chi Feng left, Xiao Meng asked suspiciously. The blue-haired youth said nonchalantly, "There are everyone on this boat, and it's not surprising that he wears it. Maybe it's because Xiao Meng has seen fewer strange people." Xiao Meng nodded in acquiescence. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Let's go back when we are full, and we will prepare for a while. Lan Zhenxian looked at Xiao Meng caringly. After returning to the room, before Chi Feng could take off his clothes and take a bath, he heard the moving voice again. "Vice guests who need to participate in the competition, please go to the top open-air arena to register. Thank you for your participation." Chi Feng immediately came to the top of the cruise ship. A huge ring in the center was at least 1,000 square meters. The sparse people on the edge of the ring were very excited.
Chi Feng saw the registration office at a glance, and when he walked over, he showed his room card and directly registered for the competition.
"Hello, let me ask what the rewards are for this exchange meeting." Chi Feng doesn't know the reward system of this exchange meeting. This is all to be asked clearly. That's it. The top 3 were decided this quarter. The first prize was 100 million yen, the second prize was a small cruise ship, and the third was a high-end sports car. The man in charge of the reception was very enthusiastic, said. Chi Feng frowned slightly. "Any expert can't look down on these things you were talking about, right?" The man was taken aback, and then he looked around and saw that no one was thinking about here at the moment. Then he whispered to Chi Feng. "This distinguished guest, in fact, you said that if the top 3 don't want these rewards, you can have them. I have obtained other things. I don't know exactly what those things are, but the strong are very eager." Chi Feng's gaze moved. There really is something strange. 100 million yen, cruise ships, sports cars, these things are very superficial to the strong. What they are pursuing is not these at all, it is power and right. The 5th and 6th places also have consolation prizes. The man half talked and found that Chi Feng had disappeared. He wiped his eyes and thought he was dazzled. After signing up, Chi Feng returned to the room to take a bath. In the quiet Yuga environment, he was extremely relaxed. In this exchange meeting, Chi Feng wanted to win the top 3. I just don't know how strong the opponent is. If the blue-haired youth also wants to participate, Chi Feng doesn't know if he is an opponent. After taking a good bath, Chi Feng came to the top of the cruise ship full of energy. At this time, there were still 10 minutes before the start of the game. Almost most of the guests gathered here. A huge LCD screen displayed the names of the contestants. Opponent. Chi Feng is naturally the name of the legend of the night. He carefully looked at the number of people on the screen. There were 50 people in total. Other than that, the rest were watching the excitement. There are at least a few thousand people here. Those who come here are either rich or expensive. Perhaps there are still bets to press here for everyone to entertain. Dear friends, welcome to this top cruise ship. For this session of the exchange meeting, we have invited the Tokyo Underground Heroes, one of the 7 sacred alloy heroes Ochiai Minato, welcome. The host stood on the ring and said loudly. When he finished speaking, a bronzed man jumped up from below. The ground seemed to tremble the moment he landed on the ring. Everyone began to cheer, and it was clear that this alloy hero's Ochiai Kodo was very popular with them, and it was worthy of being one of the 7 saints. In Chi Feng's thoughts, the 7 saints of Tokyo may be better than the 7 saints of Shibuya. After all, Tokyo is the largest city capital of the island country, and it is normal for the strong to gather. After a few simple words, Ochiai Minato left under everyone's eyes, and at this time also announced the start of the game. The first group of players, Chi Feng, observed that his strength was about the same as Matsuzaki's. Obviously he could be on the table, but it was difficult to get into the top 10. Senior Dark Knight Legend, please go to the designated area and thank you, your game is about to begin. A staff member ran over with sweat, and he found Chi Feng after looking for a long time. Chi Feng nodded awkwardly. He didn't understand the rules, and only then did he follow the staff to the designated area of the contestants. After arriving here, Chi Feng discovered that not only the blue-haired young man is here, but the little loli is also here. What's the situation? Among these people, Chi Feng feels a lot of powerful guys, which are invisible in the usual cities. Sure enough, the strong are hidden in the dark. Hey, look, Alan, that guy is here too. Xiaomeng said with a tug at Lan Zhenshen's clothes. Lan Zhenxian naturally saw Chi Feng too. His eyes fell on the long sword on Chi Feng's back, and suddenly he remembered, isn't this guy the crazy Dark Knight legend posted online recently? Chapter 78. Two Swords. Chi Feng didn't know that he was recognized, but even if he was recognized, it was fine. His identity was originally used for cover, and there was no hiding. The next group, Underworld vs. Wu Taro. The host's high voice sounded, and Chi Feng took a breath and jumped directly from the crowd and landed on the ring. The Legend of the Night. He is actually the Legend of the Night. Suddenly an audience in the audience shouted loudly. That's right, he is the Legend of the Night. You see, this new piece of equipment is so cool, it looks exactly like the pictures on the internet. Ha ha ha, how come I am so familiar? It turns out to be the Legend of the Night. I was eating behind him just now. A fat man laughed, a little proud. As expected, Lan Zhenxian didn't make a mistake. The man with a long sword on his back and a black cloak was the Legend of the Night, and he suddenly found it interesting. Jiwu Taro did not jump into the arena like Chi Feng. He climbed up from below. Chi Feng looked at him. This guy named Jiwu Taro looks very heavy and has a thick back. I don't know what happened. Jiwu Taro glanced at the surrounding audience before looking at Chi Feng. Are you the recently famous Dark Knight legend? Chi Feng smiled. It's under. Okay, today I'm going to learn how powerful your quirk is. Jiwu Taro sneered, and suddenly his clothes exploded. Everyone was shocked when they looked at Jiwu Taro's upper body. The body of Jiwu Taro is not human. A huge carapace is particularly obvious on the back, and explosive muscles on the chest. Is this an animal quirk? Chi Feng rarely sees an animal quirk. Suyusas is an animal quirk, and the even number Hanyuko from the Heroes Department of Yongakuin is also an animal quirk, and Suyusas seems to be good friends. Yes, zone quirk is scarce because it is very scary. Every zone is a stock with great growth potential. Jiwu Taro laughed. Chi Feng raised his eyebrows and said, you animal quirk seems to be the bastard, right? It matches the name a bit, carapace. Ha 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 bastard, it seems to make sense. A person in the audience who supported the Legend of the Night laughed. For a while, the audience burst into laughter, and even some serious hosts laughed in this environment. Jiwu Taro lowered his head and his face was dark. He raised his head after the surroundings became quiet. The moment Jiwu Taro's eyes met, Jiwu Taro rushed over. In the airflow area, the long sword behind it fell on the palm of Chi Feng's hand. In the eyes of everyone, Chi Feng slashed out, and a white airflow instantly rushed towards Jiwu Taro. Jiwu Taro was surprised and reacted quickly, blocking the sword gas with his back, but a scar was left on the gray carapace on his back. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Unexpectedly, it was so hard. Chi Feng's sword didn't mean to kill the opponent. He just wanted Jiwu Taro to be injured, and then he could easily overcome it. At present, Chi Feng will not reveal his strength if he has not entered the top 10, so the sword in his hand is his best weapon and fighting method. It's my turn. Jiwu Taro said in a cold voice, and suddenly dozens of spikes shot out from Chi Feng's carapace, flying quickly.
The spikes were fast, but they were not faster than Chi Feng's eyes. With a wave of his left hand, a solid air barrier appeared, blocking the spikes.
A sword aura that was larger than before was cut out. This time the sword aura seemed to be true. Chi Feng didn't believe that he couldn't split the opponent's carapace. Jiwu Taro seems to have not reacted to the shock of Chi Feng blocking his attack. At this moment, Chi Feng's sword aura struck again, this time much faster than the last time. Jiwu Taro could not escape and was directly slashed. People flew down the ring with blood. The legend of the night wins. Quickly send Jiwu Taro to the infirmary. A staff member shouted loudly, and the stretcher was quickly brought over, carrying away Jiwu Taro with blood on his back. Night legend is so strong, a female in the crowd cried admiringly. It's so handsome. The nympho woman looked at Chi Feng's back with charming eyes. Although some men are jealous, they also have to admit the fact that the legend of the night is powerful. They won the game with 2 sword. It is not so simple to deal with such a strong zone quirk. Alan, that guy looks pretty good, Xiaomeng said as he looked at Chi Feng coming down from the ring. It's interesting. Lan Zhenxian smiled. But I think he is far behind Alan. After all, you are the strongest. Xiaomeng smiled, showing a very cute expression. Lan Zhenxian looked down at Xiaomeng who was smiling at him. Don't look at the surface and everything. His strength may not even be 5 out of 10. How do you know that he is not my opponent? Xiaomeng didn't expect Alan to give such a high rating to the Legend of Night, but she still said unwillingly. I don't care, Alan is the best. Okay, I can't stand you. Lan Zhenxian stroked his forehead. Chi Feng continued to watch the match in the off-stage preparation area. At this time, the surrounding contestants understood that this guy is very strong and a strong opponent. They are all watching Chi Feng. Chi Feng didn't care about other people's gazes and watched the game intently. The next group, Lan Zhenxian vs Yamada Kyosuke. Come on, Alan. Xiaomeng knew that Alan would win, but he still encouraged. Lan Zhenxian touched the ground on his toes, and fell on the ring like a flying fairy, immediately greeted with applause. It turns out that his name is Lan Zhenxian. Chi Feng has long focused on the blue-haired youth. The feeling that this person gave Chi Feng at the hero's container shop was very mysterious. Moreover, the old man Gong also told him not to inquire, saying that he was not qualified. For this, Chi Feng has always cared about this guy, wanting to know where he comes from and what identity he has. Lan Zhenxian fell on the ring, and his opponent Yamada Kyosuke also turned up from the other side at this time. In the eyes of outsiders, Lan Zhenxian's figure is like the difference between an adult and a pupil in front of Yamada Kyosuke. Indeed, Lan Zhenxian is about 175, and Yamada Kyosuke is at least 2 meters tall, burly and sturdy, and he is not a good crop at first glance. Remember, Yamada Kyosuke was the one who defeated you. Yamada Kyosuke didn't talk nonsense at all, and suddenly 3 1-meter-long iron forks were ejected from the joints of his fists.
Chi Feng almost called out, Wolverine. Although they are very similar, Chi Feng knew that this could not be Wolverine. The opponent's long iron fork is 1 meter, and Wolverine's is only 20 or 30 centimeters, which is fundamentally different.
But because the opponent's quirk is closer to Wolverine, it really surprised Chi Feng. Chapter 79 Lan Zhenxian was expressionless. He didn't listen to a word of Yamada Kyosuke's words, and now the opponent rushed towards him. Lan Zhenxian raised his hand and shot a blue light, quickly sinking into the opponent's body.
Yamada Kyosuke's body suddenly stiffened, and there was a hint of panic in his eyes. He clearly felt a blue power in his body that was drifting away. The next moment his meridians began to fester and burst, and Yamada Kyosuke straightened up before reaching the center of the field. Fell down.
When this scene happened, all the audience in the audience were a little unclear. So, at this moment, there was no sound. They didn't know what happened. Some people didn't even see Lan Zhenxian's blue light into the opponent's body. But Chi Feng saw it, and he clearly felt the horror of the power in the blue light. That power seemed to turn everything into ashes. Perhaps this was his illusion, but Chi Feng knew that this Lan Zhenxian was very good, strong.
The host was also a little confused. Why did Yamada Kyosuke fall at the beginning, but the process still has to go? 1. 2. 3. 4. 5.
After shouting until 10 Yamada Kyosuke did not move, the host directly announced that Lan Zhenxian had won. Several staff members came to the stage to lift Yamada Kyosuke up, and found that he was still angry, but seemed to be in a coma. Chi Feng's face is uncertain. The appearance of this Lan Zhenxian is a change. He doesn't want to be in the limelight. To tell the truth, it would be nice to be third. The current Dark Knight legend is not suitable for the first place, but the first on the bright side is very dangerous.
Lan Zhenxian came to the preparation area and glanced at the Legend of the Night, but the Legend of the Night didn't seem to care about him at all, which made Lan Zhenxian feel a little weird.
According to the strength that he showed just now, Dark Knight Legend should have reacted, but the other party didn't seem to care at all. Alan, you were great. Xiaomeng jumped to Lan Zhenxian's side and took his hand to praise. Don't make trouble, Xiaomeng, you'll be the next one. Just after Lan Zhenxian said this, the host on the stage shouted. Next group, Lan Xiaomeng will play against 3 bones.
Chi Feng turned his eyes to Lan Junxian. The girl next to Lan Junxian should be Lan Xiaoming. He heard the two talk in the restaurant before.
This seems to be a pair of brothers and sisters, both surnamed Lan. Kai Feng thought this was a pair of CPs before. Lan Zhenxian was Loricong. It turned out not to be. The two should be related by blood. It's my turn, Alan, you have to cheer for me. Lan Xiaomeng opened his eyes and looked at Lan Zhenxian. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Hurry up, you naughty boy. Lan Zhenxian urged. Lan Xiaomeng obediently nodded and jumped onto the ring. At this time, her opponent Sanguinuo also fell on the ring. This man with 3 bones is really as thin as bones. He is nearly 1.8 meters tall and may weigh no more than 100 catties. He is full of bamboo poles. Are you malnourished, little brother? Lan Xiaomeng only acts like a coquettish to Lan Zhenxian, and has always been rude to others, without scruples.
Little sister, don't be silent. Your brother seems to be very strong, but I won't give him face. A smile appeared on the face of the 3-boned yin bird, and the yellow teeth were exposed. Kai Feng wanted to kill Ida at the time. Tenya's toothbrush was used by him, it was really too yellow.
Lan Xiaomeng obviously saw the yellow tooth too. She exploded at the time. She didn't know when a large black sword suddenly appeared in her left hand. The sword was at least 1.7 meters long, which was longer than hers.
Kai Feng almost thought that Lan Xiaoming had equipment such as a space warehouse or a space ring, but after thinking about it, he felt that it was not. This may be Lan Xiaoming's quirk. Just what kind of quirk can make such a big sword out of thin air? This style of painting is obviously a bit of a sense of contradiction, such a little loli holding a sword bigger than her, no matter how strange it looks. Sanji Yu Duo seemed a little surprised, but he was not afraid because the other party had a big sword. Watching Lan Xiaoming rush towards him, Sanji Yu Duo sneered, and suddenly his body began to soar, from nearly 1.8 meters tall to 3 in an instant. Meter. The 3 bones at this time no longer looked like a human, and the bones were exposed, like the skeleton king. Kai Feng exclaimed, it's really amazing in the world. Today, he has really gained a lot of knowledge, and he has never heard of this kind of quirk. Lan Xiaoming just felt that this kind of 3 bones had become more disgusting, but there was no fear in his heart. He swung the big sword in his hand and slashed at the 3 bones of his calf. 3 bones used quirk to derive a huge bone out of thin air and collided with Lan Xiaoming's big sword. There were some cracks on the bone, but the crack disappeared in the next moment, and the bone was as smooth as glazed jade. Be careful, Xiaoming. Lan Junxian yelled, slightly worried. This 3-boned quirk is very partial, but his strength should not be underestimated. He is afraid that Xiaoming is not an opponent. When Lan Junxian said that, Lan Xiaoming was even more angry. Why is Alan so relaxed when confronting the enemy? It's not fair to meet her when it's her turn. The audience in the audience was also a little dumbfounded. What is this all about? A lowly girl with a machete, a skeleton man 3 meters high, it is really eye-opening. Fortunately, the ring is big enough, otherwise these 2 big Buddhas really can't be accommodated. At this time, Lan Xiaoming also had a big sword in his other hand, with 2 swords in his hand, slashing at the 3 bones frantically, like a storm. Sanji Yu was tired of coping for a while, but did not feel the slightest panic. At the moment when Lan Xiaoming was a little weak, the white giant stick in Sanji Yu Duo's hand swept away and knocked Lan Xiaoming's 2 big sword away. Xiaoming also fell to the ground. It's too late for my little sister to admit defeat. I won't show any mercy for a while. Although Sangwo Duo doesn't give Lan Junxian face, it is impossible to say that he is not afraid. The strength Lan Junxian showed before made him exceptional attention as a strong enemy. Lan Xiaoming couldn't listen to it, and didn't admit defeat. This time, when her hands were together, a bigger sword was formed, which was 2 meters long, and slashed towards the 3 bones. The giant bone rod in Sanguduo's hand also instantly grew bigger, and collided with the broadsword, producing a harsh sound. Stubbornly stubborn. Red light suddenly lit up in the hollow eyes of the 3 bones, and the giant bone rod in his hand instantly turned red, knocking Lan Xiaoming's big sword into the air again. This time the giant bone rod hit Lan Xiaoming. On top of his head, Lan Xiaoming was beaten directly on the ground, not knowing his life or death. Oops, it's too heavy to start. The red light in Sanguduo's eyes gradually faded and regretted. He was a little angry just now, so he may have used too much force. He knows the power of this stick. Maybe the little girl is dead. Lan Junxian's face turned dark, not because Lan Xiaoming might be killed by this blow, but because he knew that Lan Xiaoming's quirk was terrifying. This horrible side was only when Lan Xiaoming lost consciousness. Will appear. Chapter 80. 3 bones looked at Lan Junxian in surprise. According to the truth, Lan Xiaoming was beaten to death by this gang. Lan Junxian should go crazy and rush to him for revenge, but now it seems that Lan Junxian has a little attack. It didn't mean anything, but his complexion was a little unpleasant. Chi Feng's divine sense cannot exceed 15 meters, and Lan Xiaoming on the ring has exceeded the distance he can spy with divine sense, so I don't know whether this little loli is dead or alive. The audience who left the stage was also regretful. No one spoke. The ring was originally fistless, and it was normal to die. The three bones had been kindly reminded before, but the little Lolita did not listen, and this kind of thing happened. Just when Sanguidua wanted the referee to pronounce the result of the match, Lan Xiaoming suddenly stood up, and a black shadow appeared behind her blanket. Everyone, get out of here, speed. The scene that Lan Junxian was afraid of showing up still appeared, and he immediately shouted at the people present. This is not a trivial matter. When Sanguidua was wondering what was going on, from the black shadow behind Lan Xiaoming shot countless weapons, all kinds of weapons. There were countless weapons like rain, flying in all directions, and the indiscriminate attack instantly came to the crowd watching, killing more than 70 people on the spot. Lan Junxian retreated quickly. After Lan Xiaoming's negative quirk appeared, he could not stop him. He could only pray that he would not kill too many people. Although he had a hard background, he would inevitably be criticized. This sudden change happened. Chi Feng didn't react when he saw the weapon flying towards him. He was cut in his calf, and the black cloak flicked. He used the air to manipulate the quirk to make him strong. Like a rock, countless weapons shot on the cloak and bounced back instantly, without causing any damage to Chi Feng. But other people are different. Their quirks may not be good at dealing with such emergencies, and they have died. Some of the weaker players were also killed by the storm-like weapons. For a time, the top of the cruise ship was like hell on Earth. Having 3 bones is not much better. He was the first to suffer the most damage. Now all the bones on his body were cracked and could not be recovered. He knew that he might be dying, and a remorse arose in his heart. Lan Xiaoming, who was like a devil in front of her, could not believe that she, who was still a lowly before, would become this killing angel. The high platform where the host was on was also shattered. Fortunately, he was not killed, but he was cut several times in his leg and fell down. Everyone was fleeing, but there was a man walking towards the ring. This man was covered in metal texture, and countless weapons fell on him and were all bounced off. He is one of the 7 sages of Tokyo, alloy heroes Ochi make do, Quirk alloying. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Ochi Minato did not expect such a change to happen. Originally, he was just a special guest. As a result, he was naturally unable to stay out of the matter when he encountered this kind of thing. What surprised him was that this kind of dumpling-like weapon was such a continuous attack. It's like a bottomless pit. Every step he made would be even more difficult. At this time, the guests were almost running. Nearly 200 people died in the thousands. It was a disaster. It's enough. Ochi Minato boarded the ring, came to Lan Xiaoming's body, and knocked Lan Xiaoming off the stage with a punch. At the same time, the black shadow slowly faded, and finally disappeared completely. Ochi Minato was about to take Lan Xiaoming away immediately. He could no longer do the things here, and he had to hand Lan Xiaoming to a higher level to make a decision. Lan Junxian ran over and said to Ochi Minato, "You don't need to be responsible for this matter, I will take care of it." Ochi Minato looked at Lan Jingxian and asked, "Who are you?" Lan Junxian is not talking nonsense. He knows that he can't continue the game. Although he is unwilling, he must go back and deal with such a thing. "I am a member of the God's team." The God group. Ochi Minato was startled, and then his expression changed quickly, and he immediately said with a smile, "It turns out that you belong to the God group, so let this matter be handled by you, I won't be involved." Chi Feng is the only one standing still. Except for his calf cut at the beginning, he has never suffered any more injuries. After this, Chi Feng has a new idea. He wants to exercise. The 4th level of Qi training is too far away from body training. According to the records of Taoist temples in the previous life, at least the basic level of cultivation is required to build the body, and Chi Feng does not have a body training method. But this doesn't mean that he can't train his body anymore. He has the Thor quirk, and he can use thunder and lightning to forge his body to achieve the most strengthening of his body. Ochi Minato's quirk is alloyed, so he is not afraid of sword and guns, but Chi Feng is different. If he uses Thor to forge his body, he will have another way to save his life. Maybe it won't take long before the villain alliance will appear again. In addition, there is a huge rock from the outside of the sky that is pressing on Chi Feng's heart. Alien creatures, I don't know how strong it is. In Sister Ying's dream, a lot of professional heroes have died. Now that Chi Feng heard Lan Junxian's God group, he couldn't help thinking of some other hidden powers. What kind of organization this God group is, even the Ochi Kodu, one of the 7 sages of Tokyo, is so respectful. Lan Junxian casually confessed a few words, and let Ochi Kodu end the game. Some contestants died, some jumped into the sea to escape, and so many people died here and could no longer continue the game. Lan Junxian hugged Lan Xiaoming and glanced at Chi Feng before leaving, meaning we would see you again. Chi Feng was a little speechless. He was ready to win the award, but suddenly something like this happened. Apart from having a good meal, he opened his eyes and gained nothing. At this time, Ochi Minato realized that there was another person standing, and he walked over to Chi Feng. "Are you okay?" This had to surprise him. It was very difficult to walk in front of Lan Xiaoming with his strength, not to mention other people. He was certain that except for the gods, Lan Junxian and Sangguo could enter the 7 sacred category. The strength of the rest is generally low. The appearance of Chi Feng was obviously an accident. Almost everyone here flees to death, but this guy is still standing here. It seems that there is nothing at all. Chi Feng chuckled. How can I be okay if you are okay? To be honest, even if Chi Feng doesn't use a cloak to block those weapons, he still has a way to avoid being hurt. It just takes a little effort. Lan Xiaoming's terrible quirk does not seem to be able to exert his true strength. This may be related to Lan Xiaoming's own strength. Perhaps after Lan Xiaoming's strength improves, he can control that strength to be truly stronger. You deserve to be compared with me. Ochiai Minato's face gradually became cold. Lan Junxian gave face to him, but it doesn't mean that he gave face to everyone. Such an unknown fellow wants to be in front of his 7 sages. Pretending to be forced, that is, looking for death. Chapter 81 Fighting against the 7 Saints of Tokyo. Chi Feng felt the chill of Ochiai Minato, and his tone became cold. Why, is the 7 Saints going to be a bit more powerful? You're right, the 7 sages just want to be awesome. Ochiai Minato sneered and walked towards Chi Feng. The metal texture immediately appeared all over his body, and the quirk was activated. Most of the people here have escaped, and the rest on the ground are dead. It doesn't matter if you kill the black-cloaked man in front of you at this time, who cares about dying one more person? Not everyone can challenge the majesty of the 7 saints, especially the 7 saints of Tokyo. Chi Feng knows that this guy is going to do something. He will not let the other party start to deal with him first. After all, it is the 7 sages. This is the first time Chi Feng has fought the 7 sages. This battle can also reflect the fact that there is something between him and the 7 sages. How much difference? The long sword on the back fell in his hand. Chi Feng instigated elemental power and air manipulation, and slashed it out. The wave of this sword was several battles long, and the tearing force in it was terrifying. Ochiai Minato had not seen Chi Feng's previous game, nor did he not know that the Dark Knight legend was him. Originally, he was resting on the next floor, but he heard the violent fluctuations and the screams of people. Only then did he come to the top floor to stop Lan Xiaoming. When this sword wave slashed at him, Ochiai Kodu thought that he had read it wrong, but the next moment he knew that he had not read it wrong. This is indeed a very powerful sword wave. He has never seen it before. The sword man can cut such a long wave of sword. Those guys who use sword are at most sword, which is a few meters away, and it is impossible to cause any harm to him. But the sword wave in front of him was different, and he obviously felt that the power in this sword wave was extremely huge. Ochiai Minato did not dare to resist, and deviated from the trajectory of the sword wave. This sword smashed the floor and directly split the iron plate, extending to the extreme end position before stopping the crack. Ochiai Minato took a breath of air conditioning, and this sword actually split the iron plate on the ground a distance of tens of meters, which was terrifying. At this moment, Ochiai Minato no longer dared to underestimate Chi Feng, and immediately asked sharply, "Who are you in the end?" "Oh, don't you have your eyes above the top? I deserve you to know who it is," Chi Feng said sarcastically. The long sword in his hand swung out again, and another wave of sword cut out. After this wave of sword, Chi Feng cut out 2 sword again, a total of 3 sword. This time, Chi Feng wouldn't let the opponent escape. He stretched out his left hand and shook it towards Ochiai, creating a vacuum zone about 1 meter around the opponent, locking the opponent's movements. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. When Chi Feng made these 3 sword waves, Ochiai Minato was about to avoid it first, but the next moment his body became sluggish. It seemed that the surrounding airflow had changed, making him unable to move freely. However, this kind of restraint Ochiai broke away easily and trapped him for a few seconds, but in these few seconds, the 3 sword waves had already arrived in front of his eyes. Hard climb. Ochiai Minato was too late to evade, so he could only resist. His body instantly doubled. The moonlight on the body could reflect the dazzling luster. 3 sword waves hit Ochiai Minato, and Ochiai Minato was directly smashed. It flew upside down 4 or 5 meters away before landing on both feet and stopped. At this moment, on Ochiai Minato's body, 3 conspicuous sword marks were left on the firm muscles. There was blood flowing out of the sword marks, and he was injured. Okay. Very good. Ochiai Minato grinned with anger. This is the second time he was injured since he became the 7 saints. The first time he was injured was because he challenged the 7 saints who ranked ahead of him. The second time was Chi Feng. He didn't expect that there would be someone who could hurt him on this cruise ship, so obviously this guy could not be an unknown person. I'm qualified to compete with you now, right? Chi Feng looked at Ochiai with a cold eye. He knew that this guy didn't use his full strength, but did he use his full strength? If you want to beat him at any time, Chi Feng is not afraid. Ochiai Mitoto remembers you, but don't think that you are my opponent. You are still a little worse, and report your name. Ochiai Mitoto does not plan to fight anymore. If you continue to fight, he will have to use it. It's a killer move. Now the police should have been notified to come here. Remember, your grandfather is called Dark Knight Legend. After Chi Feng said this sentence, he jumped into the air and flew towards the distant city, because he saw the police patrol boat coming here. He is now a professional hero and the wanted criminal in the police station can't stay here. Can fly. Ochiai Minato was really shocked this time. He had never seen a quirk who could fly without wings. This kind of quirk was really flying. After Chi Feng left, Ochiai Mitodu also jumped into the water. The matter here has nothing to do with him. As an underground heroes, he can't deal with the police on the bright side. On the bright side, only people on the bright side are responsible. Not long after the two left, people from the police station rushed to the police station, and the face of the dead person in the mound who was watching this place gradually sank. Who could kill so many people? Sir, look over there. Suddenly a policeman yelled. Chiuchai looked straight in the direction, and there was a skeleton full of cracks standing motionless on the ring. Quick, save me. At this moment, the skeleton spoke, and Sukauchi Naochi reacted right away. There is only one living person here, and he is an important witness and target of understanding. Be careful and take him back. Sukauchi Naojung immediately ordered people to save Sangguo Duo. Sangguo Duo felt too much shock in his heart today. First Lan Xiaoming entered a state of killing more than 100 people, and then beat him to a state of frequent death, and then saw the legend of the night and one of the 7 sages of Tokyo Ochiai Midu fights. It seems that Ochiai Midu is still at a disadvantage. Although Ochiai Minato is only the penultimate place in the 7 sages of Tokyo, being able to become the 7 sages in Tokyo shows that its strength is so powerful that ordinary people cannot challenge it. It's natural to know who has 3 bones in the legend of the night. Most people compare the strength of the legend of the night with heroes such as Kamui Woods and Kamui Woods. But who can believe that such a dark knight heroes can actually compete with the 7 sages of Tokyo and be evenly matched, or even better? Although most of the underground heroes are unknown, it is only a small part of people who don't know it. The distribution of underground heroes is larger than that of professional heroes. Some of them maintain the safety of the world, and some are willing to share the pressure of professional heroes. They are all unlicensed heroes. Many people don't know that Stain, the hero's killer, also belongs to the underground heroes, but he committed crimes on the surface and never admitted that he is the underground heroes. Chapter 82. The cruise ship incident is under further investigation after Senguduo was taken away by people from the police station. On the second day, Naozao Sukauchi received an unfamiliar call, and after only listening to the call for a minute, he slowly put down the phone in his hand. The police officer on the side saw that the mound was upright and his expression was wrong, and he asked quickly, "Personnel, what happened to the mound?" Sukauchi Naojung's face was uncertain, and after a while of silence, he suddenly said, "Don't investigate the cruise ship incident. Quickly suppress the incident and don't let it ferment." Ah. The police officer was surprised and asked incredulously, "Why? Who called you just now?" Sukauchi Naojung said with a darkened face, "Don't bother, I will report to my superiors. We are no longer able to intervene in this matter." The young police officer was taken aback for a moment. Just a few words made the righteous Shizukai Naojung dare not pursue it anymore. What should I do with the 3 bones? The young police officer thought for a while and asked again. Ask everything he knows, and then find out his details. Sukauchi sighed after speaking. Some things are always unexpected, and some people are always above others. Naozao Sukauchi couldn't imagine what would happen to the island country without All Might. The next day, although the police suppressed the cruise ship incident as much as possible, some information was revealed. At that time, thousands of people were watching the battle and many people escaped. Some of these people spoke out with a big mouth, causing a temporary shock. Madden. You. A high school heroes class A. Have you heard that the cruise incident last night was so exciting? Hiroshima Ajiro said with some excitement. Hiroshima-kun, have you heard of it too? Ida Tenya walked over. Of course, I don't know what kind of news is such a hot news. It is said that it is a private cruise party, more than 100 people have died, and I don't know what happened. Hiroshima Ajiro suddenly felt sympathy for the deceased. In this society now the death of more than 100 people is a big deal. I suspect this is a conspiracy. The news is not broadcast at the moment. It must have been suppressed by the government and the police. Is it for fear or is there any hidden secret? Ida Tenya said, touching his chin. Things you shouldn't worry about, just worry less and start class. When Aizawa Shota came to the class, she heard someone discussing yesterday's cruise ship incident. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Naturally, he had heard about this cruise incident. It was not a private cruise party, but an exchange meeting held by the underground heroes. Originally, this exchange meeting should have ended successfully, and it would not alarm the police and professional heroes, but it seemed that it was because of a certain these reasons have changed, and more than 100 people have died. As for why the news is not broadcast, it is obvious that some people in this exchange meeting have a strong background, at least to the point where they can compete with the island government, so the news is only spread through the trails. People have distorted the original incident of the cruise ship incident, causing these students to only know that more than 100 people have died, but they don't know the truth of the matter. Aizawa Shota doesn't know that things are really connected. How could these students know? After talking about class, Mrs. Aizawa scanned the classmates in a circle, and suddenly found that Chi Feng was not there. Who knows where Chi Feng has gone? Aizawa Shota asked. Chi Feng has never been absent. Is there anything today? Midoriya Izuku had long thought that Chi Feng hadn't come. He didn't know where Chi Feng had gone or why he didn't come to school. Seeing that no one answered this question, Aizawa Shota frowned. A student in his class somehow did not come to class and did not ask for leave. Is there really anything wrong with Chi Feng? At the moment Chi Feng is on a certain mountain, sweat is coming out of his forehead, and he is trying to suppress something. On Chi Feng's calf, a large patch of pitch-black toxin began to be forced out of the body. Now it can be seen that Chi Feng's entire leg is black, which is obviously highly poisoned. Indeed, Chi Feng was very toxic, so he didn't go to school to attend classes. Today was the last day, and tomorrow was a double break, but something like this happened. At that time, Chi Feng didn't care at all. After being hit by Lan Xiaoming's weapon in his calf, he ignored him. After treating the wound a little at night, the whole leg turned black the next day. If he finds it later, this one leg is really useless. Chi Feng didn't expect Lan Xiaoming's quirk, and the weapon fired was actually carrying a very poisonous weapon. If it weren't for Chi Feng's current strength, he might not be able to deal with this poison. He couldn't go to school. He didn't even have time to ask Aizawa teacher for leave. The most important thing at the moment is to force the toxin out. Chi Feng was sweating profusely, using the 4-layer Chi training base and air manipulation to separate the toxins on the thighs little by little, and then excrete them from the body. The toxins are gradually decreasing. After a few hours, there are no black marks on the thighs, and only the calves are left. I told you not to take Xiaoming to the game. Do you think the God team needn't worry about such a big incident? In the huge and luxurious room, a middle-aged man looked at Lan Junxian below and said, with a reproach in his tone. Group leader, Xiaomeng is not to blame for this matter, if any punishment is imposed on me. Lan Junxian did not even excuse him, and directly admitted his mistake. The real name of this group leader is Zhen Shuang, and he is the leader of the third group in the God group. There are only 3 groups in the God group. This kind of power that is only available to island nations can be on an equal footing with the government. But if the gods are too presumptuous, the government will not tolerate it. Another point is that the people of the God group have always been mysterious. Generally, they will appear at the moment of disaster and crisis in the island country, and they will be hidden after everything is in peace. Although secretive, it is not low-key. On the contrary, the people of the God group are high-key. You two are the elites of my third God group. The future is limitless. How could I punish you? Maki banged his fingers on the table, and said, but I want to remind you that recently what you and Lan Xiaoming did has angered the government and the police. It's better to keep a low profile these days, otherwise it's not good to be caught by the other 2 groups. Lan Junxian seemed to want to say something, but Zhen Shuang did not give him a chance. The advantage of the God group is that the resources can be the same as the government. These resources are used to build you. In our God group, if there is a slight difference, work hard, and the resources will be taken away by the remaining 1 or 2 groups. At that time, you were much worse than the other elites. I understand. Lan Junxian bowed horizontally at the tree. Mashu nodded horizontally. Go down and take good care of Xiaoming. Chapter 83 Challenges to the 7 Saints. Sorry Aizawa teacher, I am a little sick and can't come to school today. Chi Feng had time to call Aizawa Shota after all the toxins were excreted. Sick? Aizawa Shota asked in a flat tone. Forget it, I will report normally on Monday, please trouble you. Chi Feng said apologetically. If your body is well maintained, the sports festival will begin soon. I hope you don't make any mistakes. Aizawa Shota hung up after speaking. Chi Feng sighed in relief and lay on the ground. It was really dangerous. He almost lost his leg. He didn't want to be one-legged heroes. That Lan Xiaoming's quirk is really terrifying. It seems that he can't control his power. This kind of person is the most terrible and easy to run away. Just like the student Chang'an, if the quirk is not used properly in the dark night, it will be difficult to control. After a short break, Chi Feng was about to leave. Things in the Shibuya Underground Heroes venue cannot always be delayed, and he is now going to challenge the 7 Saints. Since fighting with Ochiai Kodo, Chi Feng has known the current strength between him and the 7 Saints. Shibuya's 7 Saints may not be as strong as Ochiai Kodo, so he can still consider challenging for the last 1 or 2. When he became the 7 Sages, it was not too late to look for Gao Mulong to settle accounts. When Chi Feng came to the Underground Heroes venue, it seemed to be more lively than usual. Chi Feng glanced at the edge of the ring on the first floor, and when he looked at the leaderboard, he was surprised. The 6th place of the 7 Saints, Barbarian Mountain. Has Barbarian Mountain become the 6th of the 7 Sages? Chi Feng stared at the ranking list blankly. How long did it take for Barbaric Mountain to go directly from the 5 kings to the 6th of the 7 Sages? This friend, when did Mansion become the 7 Sages? Chi Feng asked someone casually. Seeing Chi Feng's extraordinary dress, the man seemed to have a background, and said, Man 6 sages are the 7 sages who became the night before yesterday. The game is wonderful. Chi Feng really wants to watch the game in Mansion, but it is impossible now. It is not allowed to shoot with mobile phones during the game, so the confidentiality measures have been done very well. Regardless of the strength of Barbarian Mountain, Chi Feng now has to consider himself, he wants to challenge the last of the 7 sages. The Trident of Shu County. This strange sounding name is the last of the 7 sages, the 7th sage. Chi Feng came to the last floor of the underground heroes, where the field is only used for the battle with the 3 emperors and 7 saints, and the rest of the battles are on the negative floor. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. When Chi Feng came here, he found that there were only a few people sparsely underneath. A middle-aged man in charge of management sat idly at the registration desk and watched the series. I want to challenge the 7th Shengxian Trident. Chi Feng came to him and said flatly. Ha 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 ha, this actor is really terrible. The middle-aged man laughed and wiped his mouth. It seemed that he didn't hear what Chi Feng said. But because the last layer is relatively empty, there are not many people, so Chi Feng's words were still heard by some people, but they seemed to think that they had heard it wrong. How many dare to challenge the 7 saints this year? Not everyone is a wild mountain. Seeing that this guy hadn't heard him, Chi Feng snapped the table and said, don't watch this kind of brain damage drama. You're looking for death. The man was jumped off by Chi Feng and immediately stood up and pointed at Chi Feng and said, daring to make trouble in the underground heroes venue, it's not about looking for death. Laozi said to challenge Shushan Trident, didn't you hear it? Chi Feng didn't care about this guy's threat at all, and said it again. What? The man in charge of the registration thought he had misheard. You said you want to challenge the Trident of the 7th Shengshu County. Yes, can you sign up for me now? Chi Feng nodded and said. The middle-aged man calmed down. As long as someone signed up for him to challenge the 7 saints, he had no reason to refuse, but he had to pay a certain amount of money. Except for the Savage Mountain who challenged the 7 sages a few days ago, no one has challenged the 7 sages in the past few months, so his registration office is very idle. Now this man in a black cloak wants to challenge the 7 sages, there was no reaction for a while. After thinking about it, he was a little distracted by watching the series, he realized that it was his negligence, and suddenly smiled. Are you sure? Of course, Chi Feng said flatly, when can I compete after signing up? I need to inform the Trident in 7th Shengshu County, so it takes time. There may be news in the afternoon. The middle-aged man said immediately. Okay, let me know, I'll wait here. After registering his name, Chi Feng paid 5 million yen before he came to a corner with no one to sit down. Some other people immediately came to the registration office and asked, who did that person challenge just now? The 7th Saint, Shushan Trident. The middle-aged man said casually, and then got up and went backstage to contact Shushan Trident. Wow, some people suddenly became excited. What is going on? Barbarian Mountain just challenged the Skeleton Killer 2 days ago. Today, this man in black is going to challenge the Trident of Shushan County. Has any expert risen recently? Not to be lonely. Chi Feng didn't think so much when sitting in the corner. For him, no matter what quirk the Trident of Shushan County is, he is sure to win. Mansion can be the 6th sage, why can't Chi Feng sit the 7th sage what? To tell the truth, Chi Feng doesn't know how strong Mansion is, but now Chi Feng doesn't want to fight him. This kind of person is showing his strength, so don't challenge him easily. Originally, at least one of the 5 kings was required to challenge the 7 sages, but the official seems to find it a bit troublesome. As long as they think they are capable, they can directly challenge the 3 emperors and 7 sages. Sheng has a good temper. At least this newly promoted 7 Sacred Savage Mountain has a very bad temper, and kills people at every turn. In fact, the strength of the Skeleton Killer should not be much different from that of Barbarian Mountain, and Barbarian Mountain has no chance to kill the opponent, at most victory. Are you sure that person is the Legend of the Night? Gao Mulong sitting on the sofa suddenly stood up. Yes, I'm sure I read it right, said a scar-faced man standing beside Gao Mulong. It seems that Benko is dead, this Dark Knight legend is really powerful, and immediately ask someone to take him away, this time I see where he can escape. Gao Mulong said coldly. Takagi is in charge, but. Scarface's words were still unfinished. But what? Gao Mulong saw the hesitation of the Scar, say what you have. Yes, the Dark Knight legend is now on the 4th floor, it seems to be here to challenge the 7 sages. Scar said with some worry. What are you talking about, challenge the 7 sages? Gao Mulong's expression changed, and Dark Knight legend has the strength to challenge the 7 sages. No wonder it can kill Hamaguchi. This explanation is easy to understand, but it is bad news for him. Chapter 84 Fighting the Trident of the 7th Shengshu County. Yes, just now I found out the news. The legend of Dark Knight is indeed going to challenge the 7 sages. It seems to be challenging the Trident of Shu County. Scar said truthfully. To be honest, Scar felt that Gao Mulong had made a wrong move, and the strength of Dark Knight legend could challenge the 7 sages. There were a lot of people like this who wanted to draw in, but Gao Mulong had offended it. Although Gao Mulong can call a lot of powerhouses under his hands, Scar knows that these powerhouses together cannot kill the Legend of the Night. Unless Gao Mulong can borrow someone from the hand of the leader, in this way can he kill the Legend of the Night. But how could the first in command call Gao Mulong, a third in command who watched the scene, to call his Delhi subordinates? The first in command now needs protection and can manage Gao Mulong. Don't act rashly. If he loses the challenge, we won't be too late. If he wins, Gao Mulong knows that if the Dark Knight legend wins, it means that his status has risen sharply. Gao Mulong is no longer able to move easily. People out. Moreover, the two of them have long had feuds. If the legend of the knight becomes the seven sages, it means that he has the qualifications to confront Gao Mulong head-on. Gao Mulong knows the temper of Shushan Trident. Shushan Trident will not indiscriminately kill innocents. After defeating the opponent, it will only leave a mark on the opponent's body. Other than that, there is no killing heart. Understood. Then I'll go and observe him first. Scar left after speaking. Gao Mulong took a breath and drank the red wine on the table. Senior Dark Knight, Shushan Trident accepted your challenge at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The middle-aged man who was in charge of the registration hurriedly came to Chi Feng and said, even his title was changed to senior, regardless of whether Chi Feng wins next. If he loses, he will be famous in the underground heroes, and it is only natural that he is called senior. Chi Feng nodded to express his understanding, now he just needs to wait. In just 10 minutes, the news that the Dark Knight heroes challenged the Trident of Shu County spread throughout the entire Shibuya underground heroes. For a while, those who were at work asked for leave to come to the underground heroes venue. This kind of challenge is rare for the Seven Saints. They don't want to miss the game they see. Some people who missed the Wild Mountain Challenge, the Skeleton Killer, at this time desperately rushed to the underground heroes venue. They wanted to witness this moment. Chi Feng sat quietly in the corner. As time passed, the number of people on the negative fourth floor increased from dozens to hundreds, and now there are as many as thousands of people. It is conceivable that, after a while, the water will be blocked. But no one seemed to pay attention to Chi Feng sitting in the corner. It seemed that he was like a passerby. At 2:45, there was a boiling sound. Chi Feng looked up and saw a naked man stepped onto the ring with a green trident on his back. It started. Chi Feng slowly stood up and walked from the corner towards the ring, the noise around him one after another. How long has the trident of the 7th Shengshu County haven't appeared? It seems that it has been a few months. Yes, I didn't expect two people to challenge the 7 sages recently. It's really scary for the future generations. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Don't tell me, I have heard the name of that Dark Knight legend, but it has been very popular among our citizens recently. Does he have a chance to challenge the 7th saint? Cut, how can anyone challenge the 7th sage? I think the Dark Knight legend is useless. I can't see it, I just know it after comparing. Among the crowd there were praising Chi Feng and derogatory Chi Feng, but Chi Feng didn't care. He walked into the crowd and saw Himiko Toga looking at the Shushan Trident on the ring with excitement. Chi Feng was a little confused. Today isn't it Friday, this little girl doesn't go to school. I can't control Himiko Toga at the moment. When Chi Feng walked into the crowd, he used air manipulation to separate the crowd and stepped onto the ring from the other side. At this time, everyone saw Chi Feng, dressed in a black cloak, wearing a cool helmet, and a long sword on his back that was particularly dazzling. Himiko Toga's eyes were instantly attracted by Chi Feng, and stars seemed to appear in his eyes. Legend of the Night, Shushan Trident asked blankly. Chi Feng looked at Trident in Shushan County. He was a short-haired man with well-proportioned features. His naked upper body could see the power contained in his muscles. Yes, I am the Legend of the Night. Chi Feng held one, with the long sword behind it in the palm of his hand. I can't remember how long no one has challenged me. In short, they all ended in failure. Before the game time, Shushan Trident was willing to chat. I am different from others, just like a wild mountain, who would be optimistic about him at the beginning. Chi Feng smiled slightly, not caring at all. Mansion. Shushan Trident narrowed his eyes. Even the skeleton killer is not his opponent, how can I comment? Hello everyone, audience friends. At this time, Nishimi Ichiro took the microphone and said, I think all the friends present must have not watched the game 2 days ago, so today, it just happened to make you enjoyable because of the challenge. The Legend of the Dark Knight will fight the Trident of Shushan County, let's wait and see. Shu County Trident, Shu County Trident, Shu County Trident. Almost half of the people who came here were cheering for the Trident in Shushan County, and few helped the Legend of the Night. Chi Feng didn't care. He looked at Shushan Trident and said, go ahead, otherwise there will be no chance. It's crazy. Shushan Trident sneered, the green trident on his back was taken down, and a green smoke was rolled up towards Chi Feng. Come on, Quirk of Trident in Shu County, green mist. The Trident of Shushan County, Quirk green mist, attacked villain with visible green mist. If the opponent inhales the green mist, the whole body will be weak, and even hallucinations will occur. Chi Feng took a step forward, the long sword in his hand suddenly slashed, and the air manipulation swept out, smashing the green fog instantly, and the sword wave quickly arrived in front of the Shushan Trident. Two things. Shushan Trident's pupils shrank, and after a step back, the trident in his hand moved forward. The green mist formed a barrier and blocked Chi Feng's sword wave. Chi Feng already knows the approximate strength of the trident in Shushan County, which is weaker than that of the Seven Saints Ochiai in Tokyo. His sword is far less powerful than that in Ochiai Kodo, so he can estimate the approximate strength of the trident in Shushan County. Since you only have this strength, then I am embarrassed. Chi Feng inserted the sword back into his back and rushed towards Shushan Trident. Shushan Trident's face was cold, and a rising star dared to speak to him like this. Even if he had a good temper, he couldn't stand the insult. The green mist in the green trident spread wildly and surrounded Chi Feng. Chi Feng didn't even look at the green mist. The air around him was instantly manipulated by him, isolating the green mist, and it couldn't penetrate at all. What's going on? Shushan Trident's expression changed. The quirk he relied on for survival was actually useless for this Dark Knight legend. Chapter 85 One of the New Seven Saints. There is a reason why he has been undefeated in the position of the Seven Sages. Some people even would rather challenge the Seven Sages in front of him than challenge him, because his quirk is green mist. Who can stop the fog? The all-pervasive green fog will have an effect as long as it touches the opponent, and those players cannot fight him head-on. And the quirk of this Dark Knight legend is very weird, it can actually isolate his green mist, so that he is in an invincible place. Chi Feng is very fast, and when he comes to Trident in Shu County, he has already punched out. The air is shaking. Puff. Shushan Trident was hit in the stomach by Chi Feng's punch. He felt that his internal organs were about to split, and he flew upside down on the power grid and kept convulsing. Everyone didn't expect it. How could such a change happen? Shouldn't the Dark Knight legend have been defeated? Now that the Shushan Trident is about to be defeated, when did the Seven Sages become so vulnerable? Outsiders can only see the Trident of Shushan County being suppressed, but they don't know about restraint and being restrained. The reason why the Seven Sages is so powerful is that they have methods that are stronger than the public and can stand in an invincible place. The green mist of the halberd seemed to have encountered natural enemies, causing his invincible place to become less solid. Shushan Trident fell to the ground, and everyone saw that he was already powerless, and the Seven Sages of the generation were about to end in this way, just as Barbarian Mountain defeated the Skeleton Killer 2 days ago, and ended sadly. Only a few people know that the Trident in Shushan County is not so easy to defeat. Chi Feng naturally knows this, so he stands aside and doesn't do anything. He will not take advantage of others. If he wants to fight, he will be a man. Sure enough, Shushan Trident stood up after a while. The reason why the Seven Sages are called Seven Sages is that they are different from ordinary people, so I am not so easy to lose. I can see that I can use any method. I don't want to waste time. Chi Feng is ready for the final battle. Okay. Happy. Suxian Trident suddenly flashed a green light in his eyes, and the green mist wrapped itself completely into a green armor. Chi Feng's eyes narrowed. This guy's quirk level is definitely LV5. The reason why he can't beat him is because the air manipulation naturally suppresses his quirk, and there is also a 4th level Chi training base, so the Shushan Trident is not his opponent. Chi Feng knew that he must not let the Shushan Trident touch him at the moment, otherwise the situation would be reversed. He also manipulated the air to cover his whole body, and his fists formed a vacuum. At this moment, the Shushan Trident had already rushed over. Chi Feng greeted him with a punch, and the two fought fiercely together. The feeling of punching to the flesh is so refreshing. The attack of Shushan Trident did not touch Chi Feng's skin, and Chi Feng couldn't get into the opponent's armor. Just like this, the two of them kept fighting against each other with one punch and one kick. The sublimation. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The audience below was dumbfounded. They had never seen the Trident of Shushan fight like this. It seemed that this Dark Knight legend made him anxious and even used his tricks. Himiko Toga's eyes are almost blurred. He has been attracted by the legend of the night. Such a man is a real man. Boom. The two punched each other and knocked each other into the air. Chi Feng stepped back and stabilized his figure. He actually wanted to use the wind blade, but he couldn't use it. Chi Feng's gaze had already noticed the strong auras under the ring. The strength of these people at least touched the threshold of the Seven Sages, and Chi Feng also spotted a person. Standing in the first few rows, the tall body was wrapped in a black coat. Although he was wearing a hat, he could not hide under Chi Feng's spiritual knowledge. It is precisely because of this that Chi Feng cannot reveal too much strength. These people's ideas are hard to guess, and he must be cautious. Fell me down. Shushan Trident's eyes were full of green light, a cloud of green mist in his right hand condensed into substance, and he punched Chi Feng in the chest. Zong Green Mang Fist. Chi Feng stepped forward. His right fist also used air manipulation to the extreme, covering an air barrier on the surface of the fist, and outside the air barrier was a violent air current. Real screen air punch. Boom. With a loud bang, Chi Feng flew more than 10 meters away to stop his figure, and his body was surging. The Shushan Trident was not so comfortable. He was hit by Chi Feng's punch and vomited blood and flew out, hitting him again. On the grid. Chi Feng waved his right hand and saved the Shushan Trident. The battle was over. I lost. Although Shushan Trident didn't want to admit that he had lost, he was helpless. If you lose, you lose. The strength of the legend of the night is indeed better than him. Simi Ichiro was stunned for a while, and then suddenly shouted with excitement, "Victory, victorious! The legend of the night is victorious!" A small part of the people present cheered. These people acknowledge the strength of the legend of the night. In addition, they bet a lot of money from the legend of the night, but this time they bet right. But most of the people bet on the Shushan Trident. Such a veteran Seven Sages did not want to make them disappointed, and actually lost to a rising star. Man Shan stared at Chi Feng for a while and then left. No one knew what he was thinking, so he disappeared into the negative fourth floor. Some powerful people onlookers also left. They witnessed the decline of the trident in Shushan County and the rise of the legend of the night. Someone wins and some loses, and natural selection is competing. I announce that the new 7th Sage and 7th Knight legend is born. Simi Ichiro said excitedly. He hasn't seen such a wonderful battle for a long time. Except for the battle in the Wild Mountain, few people challenged the 7 Sages. This month, there were 2 people who challenged the 7 Saints one after another, and both of them were victorious. Chi Feng stood under the light of daylight and felt this moment. Finally, he finally became the 7 Sages. Although only the last one, he was still very satisfied. The next thing is revenge. Gao Mulong never thought that he could become the 7 Sages. After solving Gao Mulong, Chi Feng can participate in the sports festival with peace of mind, otherwise he will be very uncomfortable with this stone in his heart. As for the backstage behind Gao Mulong, Chi Feng didn't think so much at present. Gao Mulong had done something wrong. He didn't believe that the people behind Gao Mulong would be as stupid as Gao Mulong. It is not a wise move to offend a newly promoted 7 Sages. On this day, Shibuya was very uneasy. Almost the entire underground heroes in Shibuya knew that the trident of Shushan lost, and the new 7th Christmas student, he is the legend of the night. At this moment, no one dared to underestimate the power of the legend of the night. In the eyes of the citizens, the legend of the night is just a heroes of the night, similar to ordinary professional heroes. But now it's different. This Dark Knight legend has another identity, that is, the 7th 7 Sages. Now, as long as they are connected with the 5 kings and 7 sages, who would look down upon it? Chapter 86. After Dark Knight became the 7th sage, even the Tokyo underground heroes have heard of it. Compared with the mansion becoming the 6th of the 7 sages, Chi Feng, the 7th of the 7 sages, is more popular. Gao Mu is in trouble. Scar broke into Gao Mulong's office with sweat on his face. Gao Mulong was drinking tea. Recently, he had drunk too much red wine and his body was a little unwell. At this time, the Scar rushed in. With a shake of his hand, he threw a jade cup worth a few million to the ground, and it fell apart. Scar. Gao Mulong's eyes burst with bloodshot eyes. This is the jade cup he bought for a large price, which is not available on the market, it is just like this. Seeing his own jade cup of Jamu's manager shattered, Scar's heart also violently twitched, but now the business is urgent. Scar has no time to apologize, and said directly, Jamu's manager is not good. The legend of the night defeated the trident of Shushan and became the new 7 saints. What? Gao Mulong's most worried thing happened. He didn't even have the time to blame Scar for breaking his jade cup. He got up and said, get the car, I'm going to see the top leader. Yes, Scar had no nonsense, and he went out to prepare the car. To be honest, he was also surprised. The strength of the trident in Shu County is obvious to all, but the strength shown by the legend of the night is even more amazing. After Scar prepared the car, Gao Mulong didn't hesitate at all, and rushed directly to the place where the top leader was. This incident had exceeded his expectations, and the top leader could only help him, otherwise he would be a dead end. Hello, get acquainted. My name is Kurosawa Ichiran. A man of medium stature stopped Chi Feng's way. Chi Feng just left the underground heroes venue when he met this man. From this Kurosawa wave, Chi Feng can feel the powerful strength. No matter what, Chi Feng doesn't want to offend people for no reason. He smiled and said, hello, do you have any suggestions? I don't dare to teach, everyone is the 7 saints, I just want to make your friend. Kurosawa Kazunami said sincerely, without any pretensions. 7 saints. Chi Feng looked at the man carefully. He was wearing a suit, his facial features were very good looking, and the most important thing was kindness. Where are you from the 7 sages? Chi Feng knows that there is no such figure as Kurosawa Yilang in Shibuya, so he is not the 7 sages of Shibuya. I am the 5th and 7th sage in Tokyo. You probably have never heard of me. Kurosawa said truthfully, and his identity is only hidden from those who don't want to make friends. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The 5th and 7 sages. Chi Feng was shocked. Every one of Tokyo's 7 sages is not simple. The Ochiai Kodo seems to be one of the 7 sages. He immediately asked, which sage is Ochiai Kodo? Oh, Kurosawa glanced at Chi Feng in surprise, you actually know Ochiai Minato, he is the 6th sage, known as the Alloy Heroes. It turns out that Ochiai Kodo is the 6th sage. Chi Feng already has a general idea in his heart. At the beginning, both parties who fought with Ochiai Kodo did not show their full strength. If they desperately wanted to kill each other, maybe Chi Feng was not so easy. Unless Thor is used again. I just heard it. Chi Feng smiled and didn't say much in this regard. After all, the cruise ship incident is an obscure term and should not be said too much. I don't know if Brother Kuroya has time to drink together. Kurosawa gave a sincere invitation. Chi Feng had seen Takagi Dragon hurriedly leaving from the underground heroes venue before. He wanted to follow up to see the situation, but was stopped by Kurosawa. However, he was very happy to get to know the 7 saints of Tokyo, naturally. No problem, please, Brother Kurosawa. Ha ha ha, It's really good that our two names start with black letters, but you should be a pseudonym, and your real name is definitely not called this. Kurosawa smiled and laughed very boldly. It's a good guess. Chi Feng didn't argue, and after thinking about it, he suddenly said, Brother Kurosawa, I haven't been to Tokyo yet. Would you like to take me around? Kurosawa immediately said, Of course there is no problem. I rushed to Shibuya to watch your game specially. There are so many delicious and fun things in Tokyo, so don't be dazzled. It's rare for Chi Feng to be so free and easy today. Putting Gao Mulong's affairs aside, he can't run anyway. Then Brother Rorosawa will lead the way. Kurosawa Kazunami and Chi Feng disappeared at the Heroes Underground venue in Shibuya and headed to Tokyo. Chi Feng just wants to see the Underground Heroes venue in Tokyo, which is the capital, the city of desire. There are strong people in such places. Chi Feng even wonders if the members of the gods are in Tokyo. Lan Junxian and Lan Xiaoming left a deep impression on him. These two brothers and sisters are a bit fun. Brother Kurosawa, is the Tokyo Underground Heroes venue like a cloud? Chi Feng couldn't help asking. Kurosawa smiled and replied. Of course, Tokyo is the place with the most underground heroes in the entire island country, and there are countless professional heroes. Apart from Tokyo, the second place is Kyoto with the most underground heroes. Shibuya put it plainly, it's only slightly more. Speaking of the underground heroes in Shibuya, Kurosawa had to say, although there are many strong underground heroes in Tokyo, but if you really say it, the underground heroes in Shibuya are ridiculously strong, and they are the first among the three emperors. The Fist of the Gods can be compared with the first emperor of Tokyo. The second Death Sickle is a killer. Both the police and the government are looking for him. Chi Feng's eyes moved. He had heard a lot about Shenquan and Death's Scythe, but it was comparable to the three emperors in Tokyo. It can be seen that Shibuya belongs to Qinlongziyuan. No wonder Kurosawa Ichiran cares about Shibuya's seven sages so much. Battle. How much do you know about Xiao Baichao? He seems to be from China. Chi Feng hurriedly asked. Xiao Baichao is a strong Chinese and he must pay attention. This old man is very powerful. It seems that he is still a Taoist priest. Almost Shenlong can't see the end. Very few people find him. I heard that he hasn't appeared for at least 1 or 2 years. He hasn't even appeared even when someone challenged him. I don't know where the wandering around the world has gone. Kurosawa Yilang obviously also knows something about Xiao Baichao. To their 7 sages, the 3 emperors are all out of reach. Chi Feng was inexplicably shocked. Xiao Baichao was actually a Taoist priest. You must know that he was also a Taoist in his previous life, and his master was even an old Taoist. At that time, Chi Feng vaguely remembered that the master had a smile on his face when he died. This Xiao Baichao Chi Feng must be found. Maybe he can unlock some secrets. The most important point is that Chi Feng wants to know whether this Xiao Baichao is a cultivator. If he is a cultivator, it means there is a place in the world. Improve the cultivation base instead of relying on absorbing this thin ore every day to increase cultivation base. Relying on Chi pill is not a thing after all. With the improvement of Chi Feng's strength, Chi pill has become tasteless. He needs to find a new way to advance. Chapter 87 Imperial League. Along the way, I talked a lot about the 3 emperors and 7 sages with Kurosawa Ichiban, so that Chi Feng learned about the 3 emperors and 7 sages of Tokyo. It didn't take long for Chi Feng to come to Tokyo, the bustling city of desire. He felt a certain pressure in Shibuya, and he felt dizzy when he came to Tokyo. Fortunately, Chi Feng's receptive ability is relatively strong. He has now fully integrated into the modern society. Now he is standing on the streets of Tokyo and his face is not changing when the vehicles are constantly moving. Brother Dark Knight, let's go to dinner by car. You can easily be recognized by professional heroes and police officers when you walk on the street. Kurosawa Kazuki obviously knew that Chi Feng was wanted, so he said so. Chi Feng nodded. Brother Kurosawa is still thoughtful. The two took a black car to the location selected by Kurosawa Yilang. After getting off the car, the driver wanted to slaughter a sum of money. As a result, Kurosawa Yilang looked scared and dare not say anything, even a few dollars cheaper. When you meet this kind of person, you have to be scared. Basically, when they meet a ruthless person, they will not speak loudly. It is because they like to bully honest people, so few people ride in black cars. Kurosawa explained with a smile. I raised my finger to a restaurant not far in front and said, you don't have to worry about being wanted for dinner in this restaurant, it's safe. Yes, I think it's also safe. Chi Feng was a little ashamed. The name of this restaurant is very safe at first glance. Can a safe house hotel be safer than this? The two walked into the hotel. 2 men in suits stepped forward and began a body search. When one of them saw the big sword behind Chi Feng, he said directly, this sword is not allowed to be brought in. Let us keep it. Chi Feng didn't have the habit of handing over his own things to others, and said directly, I'm sorry, I don't have this habit. The two frowned when they heard, is this friend here to look for things? Chi Feng was about to speak when Kurosawa Yilang suddenly took out a pitch-black diamond-shaped sign from his arms. The golden word, Sheng, on the sign was particularly conspicuous. It turns out to be the seven sages. The man in the suit was respectful, but he still said a little apologetically, but, he. The man just said him. Chi Feng also took out from his arms the same black sign as Kurosawa Yilang, with a holy word on it. Ah, the two men who were in charge of the body search were shocked. 2 seven saints came here at once. When they checked the sign, they found out that the man in the black cloak was Shibuya. The seven sages of Japan, and the other is the seven sages of Tokyo, all of which have great backgrounds. I'm really sorry, I didn't know it was the seven sages in person, we don't know Taishan. The two said apologetically after confirming the identities of Chi Feng and Kurosawa. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Shall we go in now? Kurosawa said in a flat tone. Of course it can. Those two people didn't have any nonsense. The seven sages had a very high status in the underground heroes. Even if the five kings came, they would not dare to talk nonsense. After showing his identity, Chi Feng didn't even need to turn in his weapons, so he walked in with a big swing. The safety factor here is very high. No one dares to make trouble here, even the seven sages will not do it. Besides, the seven sages will not make trouble here. How many people dare to provoke the seven sages? Seeing Chi Feng and Kurosawa walking into the hotel, some guests showed a surprised look, especially the guy in the black cloak, who actually came in with such a big sword on his back, scaring people to death. But since the people at the safe hotel did not stop, it means that the identities of these two people are extraordinary. Some guests didn't care too much. Even if they came in with weapons, the other party didn't dare to do anything. Brother Haya, you can order. Kurosawa smiled and handed the recipe to Chi Feng. Chi Feng put the long sword on his back and waved his hand and said, Brother Kurosawa is more familiar than me here. I don't care about what you order and what I eat. Okay, then I will make my own decision. Kurosawa Yilang took the recipe back, ordered a few signature dishes and handed it to the waiter. Then he looked at Chi Feng and said, Brother Dark Knight, I won't be oblivious. I want to ask you for a favor. Sure enough, there is no free lunch in the world. No, this is dinner. A person with an identity like Kurosawa Kazuna is so optimistic about a newly promoted Seven Saints, which obviously has a purpose, but Chi Feng doesn't care about Kurosawa Kazuna's purpose. He values him as long as people look pleasing to the eye. Chi Feng doesn't care. But it's okay. Chi Feng wants to hear what Kurosawa Yilang asks for help. After Kurosawa took a cup of tea and took a sip of tea, he said, Actually, this favor is also of great benefit to you. It is more for your own future than to help. Oh, Chi Feng became a little interested. Brother Kurosawa, let's listen. 3 emperors, 7 saints and 5 kings, do you know who granted the title? Kurosawa Yilang asked suddenly. Chi Feng really doesn't know who got this title. He only knows that the underground heroes are divided in this way. Do not know. It was bestowed by the Imperial League. Kurosawa's tone became a little serious. Emperor League. Chi Feng's gaze moved. This was the first organization he had heard of. The previous god group felt very mysterious to him. Now that there is one more Emperor League, Chi Feng suddenly felt that this hero's world was not that simple. Sometimes it's so strange. When you are among the common people, you can only come into contact with some low-level things, and you can only learn about some events on the news. But if you go to high places, you will gradually discover some secret things. These secret things are normal for people of this level. But for those who have just entered that circle, it is extremely fresh, like opening the door to new world. When Chi Feng killed Hamaguchi and got the ticket for the maritime exchange meeting, he was already distinguished from ordinary people. When Chi Feng became the 7 sages, he entered the hall of Gochang, and the contact matters also changed. Strange and strange. It turns out that in addition to professional heroes, in addition to those on the top of the list, there are so many secret things. There are 3 emperors, 7 holy 5 kings, and the Ace King, there are gods, and the Emperor League. So how much is there that Chi Feng doesn't know? Yes, it is the Imperial League. Kurosawa Kazunari knew that Chi Feng didn't know about the Imperial League, and said simply, above the 3 emperors and 7 sages, there is also an emperor. There is only one emperor in each country, who controls everything. 3 emperors and 7 sages, even if I don't tell you about this, you will know soon. Chi Feng suddenly asked, then is the strength of this emperor superior to all the 3 emperors and 7 sages? Yes or not? Kurosawa said. Some emperors have the strength of the 5 kings, and some do not even have the strength of the 5 kings, but there are also existences that are much stronger than the 3 emperors. Chapter 88 Ranking Tournament. Chi Feng doesn't understand, how did these people become so powerful? According to Chi Feng's current feelings, the reason why his strength has improved faster than normal people is because he has the help of the system and practice exercises. Without the double quirk of systematic choice, maybe he is still a salted fish now. Although the system has helped a lot, Chi Feng is still working very hard to become stronger. He has now realized that he needs to rely on his own exercise and fighting to grow and grow so that his strength can become stronger. After all, the system is a foreign object, just an auxiliary thing. The real ability needs to be accumulated by himself, and it cannot be successful overnight. How do those very weak emperors control the 3 emperors, 7 saints and 5 kings? Chi Feng asked, very puzzled. Without strength, there is no right to speak in this world. How can anyone give their lives to such a person? Kurosawa said with a smile. You don't understand this. There are people at that level who can fight against the three emperors as deputy. But, our island country is more awkward, and there is no deputy. Doesn't it mean that the emperor's strength of the island nation exceeds the three emperors? Chi Feng's heart trembled. He couldn't imagine how strong this person would be. Could it be that the owner of All Might and All for One had a bald head? Is it better than? Yes, in so many countries in the world, except for the Emperor of China, the rest of the emperor will not be very strong, but it is also uncertain. After all, their kind of characters are always improving themselves, breaking through themselves, and now in the end. I can't tell who is the strongest. Kurosawa analyzed it with a wave. Chi Feng asked in a low voice, I want to ask, who is stronger than All Might? Kurosawa was stunned for a few seconds, then suddenly laughed. You are really good to ask this question. All Might is recognized as the island nation's first professional heroes, what do you think? Chi Feng breathed a sigh of relief. Sure enough, All Might is the strongest in the island country, and it is worthy of being a symbol of peace. But the two of them haven't played against each other. It's impossible to say who is strong. After all, they are people on two different roads, and they are also two extremes. You Shibuya's first emperor's fist, your strength will not lose to the emperor, but if it is really fighting with death, Shengquan is not the emperor's opponent. What is the name of the emperor of the Imperial League? Chi Feng must ask this clearly, lest he doesn't even know who this emperor is in front of him. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. I don't know this anymore, my current strength is still not at that level. Kurosawa said with some regret, obviously he also wants to become stronger and enter the palace of the strongest. Although Chi Feng is a little regretful, it doesn't matter anymore. Anyway, he still hasn't touched that level, but there is one more thing Chi Feng wants to ask clearly. By the way, brother Kurosawa, do you know the gods? Of course I know, Kurosawa Kazunami said with some yearning. The God Group is a unique organization of the island country. It is said that it was established during World War II. This organization is the second organization outside of the Imperial League that can challenge the government. No wonder. Chi Feng already knows it. At that time, Lan Junxian said the backstage of the God Group, Ochiai Kudo made a big turn in his attitude, and the seven sages were really nothing in front of a behemoth like the God Group. I advise you to keep inquiries less about the gods, brothers, they are very direct, and if you provoke them, there will be no end to it. Kurosawa reminded him kindly. Chi Feng nodded to express understanding, and then asked, Brother Kurosawa, don't you have something to help me? Oh yes, I almost forgot. Kurosawa smiled awkwardly, and then said, 1 month later, the Imperial League will hold a ranking contest, which is specially prepared for the 7 sacred and 5 kings, which means to think to give the 7 sages and the 5 kings a chance to show, once a year. Qualifying contest. Chi Feng asked in surprise, is there any benefit of this opportunity? Of course, this qualifying contest is the most potential to discover. If you stand out in this qualifying contest, you will be rewarded by the Imperial League, and you may even work in the Imperial League. Then you will have a bright future. Kurosawa said with a wave of yearning. Chi Feng is a little unconcerned, has a bright future. He now has a boundless future. If the Emperor League has given him a lot of wealth, to put it bluntly, Chi Feng may not be eye-catching. He uses his means to spend tens of millions in the underground heroes casino. Kurosawa saw the disdain in Chi Feng's eyes. He slowed down his tone and said, the Emperor League will not give you a lot of money so superficially. They focus on talent training. As long as you can enter the eyes of the Emperor League, you will become for their people. Daimon will provide you with a good way to improve the quirk, so that your strength will become stronger quickly. This caused Chi Feng to raise some interest. It turns out that the Imperial League still has this kind of method that can speed up the improvement of quirk's strength. This has moved Chi Feng's heart. He currently doesn't want to rely on the quirk obtained by saving points to improve Dan. He wants to rely on his own exercise or other methods to achieve the purpose of strengthening his strength. If the Imperial League simply gave him money to sell his life, Chi Feng would not do it stupidly. What he wanted was something with substantial meaning, not a figure like money. The rules of the ranking contest are 2 people in pairs. The 7 sages and 5 kings of the entire island nation total 72 people. It is very difficult to win out of these 72 people, because many of them have the 7 sages and the 3rd or higher. As long as the 7 sages are on the 3rd upward, it is a watershed. I am afraid it is difficult to cross. Kurosawa Kazuki also knew that it is difficult to show off in the qualifying competition. I found Chi Feng because his quirk is growing and his strength is also very strong, so Kurosawa wanted to fight, but he might succeed. Anyway, no one is teaming up with him at the moment, and Ochiai Kodo is still a bit wrong with him, so it is impossible to team up with him. At this time, the dishes have been served, and the speed is very fast, and all the dishes are actually served in 1 minute. Okay, I agree, Chi Feng said directly after thinking for a while. If you want to become stronger, you have to fight constantly. At present, you can't learn anything to make yourself stronger in UA High School. To be honest, sports sacrifice Chi Feng doesn't want to participate very much, but since Bakugo Katsuki wants to find abuse so much, he can only do it. Haha. Good. Kurosawa Yilang didn't expect that the Dark Knight Tail would really agree. He laughed happily, and said to the waiter, "Bring 2 bottles of good wine, I will treat you today." Chi Feng stroked his forehead and was drinking again. Why does he always like to drink? He is not drunk. But I couldn't get away with it. Chi Feng took the wine brought by the waiter and gave Kurosawa a glass, and then poured himself a glass. Then he smiled and said, "Brother Kurosawa, let's do it." Chapter 89. The same as to die. Kurosawa Kazunari and Chi Feng can't understand even after a few cups. The Dark Knight Tail seems not to be drunk, and he is a little bit on the top. No, I can't drink anymore. Kurosawa stopped Chi Feng, who was about to pour himself. Chi Feng put down the wine glass and laughed, as Brother Kurosawa full. Kurosawa looked at a table of clean food that was basically wiped out and said, "I'm full, now I will take you to the Underground Heroes venue in Tokyo." After speaking, the two got up. Kurosawa Yilang finished the bill and went directly to the Underground Heroes venue in the black car. When Chi Feng came to the Underground Heroes venue, he realized how small the Underground Heroes venue in Shibuya is. Tokyo's Underground Heroes venue has 6 floors. The first floor is the same as Shibuya's arena competitions, and the second floor is the kind of service industry chain, you know. The third floor is arms sales, the fourth floor is a large restaurant, the fifth floor is a casino, and the sixth floor is the final arena. Chi Feng saw the ranking of Tokyo Underground Heroes when he was on the first floor. First place, Miyamoto Takumi. Second place, Blood Shura. Third place, Yoshihara Shinghai. Fourth place, Buddha. Fifth place, Barkanana. Sixth place, Jonko Nuonran. Seventh place, Dong Dashong. Eighth place, Kurosawa Kazunami. Ninth place, Ochiai Minato. 10th place, Shino Swordsman. Kurosawa Kazuno ranked 8th, corresponding to the 5th holy. Chi Feng glanced at the names of the 3 emperors and wrote them down. At this time, Kurosawa Yiran came in disguise, otherwise it would cause a sensation. After all, the 3 emperors, 7 holy and 5 kings would not appear here unless there is a wonderful game or they themselves want to play. If heroes killer Stain, where would he be ranked? Chi Feng suddenly asked, maybe he will fight Stain in the future and get a vaccination in advance. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Kurosawa touched his chin in thought, and then said after a while, I think his strength should be ranked first. The evaluation is so high. Chi Feng was surprised, but thinking about it, Midoriya Izuku, Shoto Todoroki, and Ida Tenya made all their efforts to deal with Stain, but it only made him tired. Stain didn't even use his real strength, otherwise Midoriya Izuku would have died. Chi Feng doesn't know how his current strength can be compared with the first sage, but he believes that it will never be worse, at least he can compete with the first 3 sages, right? This is the reason that Chi Feng can only use air to control. If he uses Thor, he may be able to face the 3 sages. Take you to the second floor to play. Kurosawa said with a smile. Today, when Chi Feng agreed to team up with him, Kurosawa was ready to entertain Chi Feng. Chi Feng shook his head like a rattle, and directly waved his hand and said, I don't like going to that kind of place, but the casino can go to play. What are you kidding about? Chi Feng has to build a foundation. How can he be tempted by female sex? You can talk and talk, but don't move your bed. It turns out that the Dark Knight brothers also like to play cards, so I'll show you a few hands, meaning. Kurosawa smiled and wanted to hug Chi Feng, but when he saw the longsword behind Chi Feng, he withdrew his hand. After the two came to the 5th floor, Chi Feng exchanged 1 million yen to the intermediate gaming table. Kurosawa was about to sit down and play a few games with Chi Feng, but Chi Feng said, you stand and watch. I will show you my hands. Kurosawa Kazuki also wanted to call him Chi Feng, but it turned out that Chi Feng didn't call him brother Kurosawa, only to remember that the name here is not very good, and it is easy to be recognized. Since Chi Feng wanted to play, Kurosawa would naturally not refute his face, so he stood aside and watched. But the other 4 people sitting in the seats were a little disdainful, and they showed you 2 hands. They said it was awesome, and don't lose all their underwear later. Tokyo's Underground Heroes Casino is several times larger than Shibuya. There are 500 tables for the basic gaming tables, 100 for the intermediate gaming tables, and 50 for the advanced gaming tables. Chi Feng's millions chips can only play 3 or 4, if the opponent can play, maybe the first million will be gone. But when Chi Feng saw the bad card, he threw it straight away, losing a bottom of money. Sorry, 10. JQ. Chi Feng smiled and pocketed all his chips. Sorry, 6.6.6. Chi Feng once again took away everyone's chips. Sorry, 7.8.9. Chi Feng was a little embarrassed, and it was a little easier to win this money. The faces of the other 4 people turned green. In just a dozen minutes, they had lost 20 million. Is this guy the card king, dressed like this deliberately to play with them? Kurosawa's wave is unbelievable, and the Kung Fu Underworld legend can win 20 million this time, it is simply possessed by the card king. Today, They spend a little money no matter what they eat or what they are doing. Originally, Kurosawa wanted to make Chi Feng have fun, so he prepared to pay a lot of money. As a result, this guy can go to the most prosperous Tokyo for the money he earned from playing cards for more than 10 minutes. I've played around in the strip. After Kurosawa decided to ask Underworld Legend for advice to play Jinhua, this game is 2-6, and the strength of this game can definitely be the card king. At the same time, in a villa on an island somewhere, Gao Mulong knelt on the ground and said, I beg you to help me kill the Legend of the Night, he has threatened me, and I dare not go back now. 5 meters in front of Gao Mulong's body, a black-haired and white-bearded man sat on the futon, his closed eyes slowly opened. Gao Mulong, I didn't let you be the third in command to make you trouble me. Do you think I have not heard of the Dark Knight legend? I am afraid I know more news than you. Gao Mulong's heart trembled. It seemed that the top leader didn't want to help him eradicate the Legend of the Night, but he also knew what the top leader said about the Legend of the Night, why something seemed to be wrong. You don't know when you look at it, you don't even know the strength of someone else and you want to kill him. No. One Ghost Okayama looked at Gao Mulong disappointedly. This kind of look, Gao Mulong, is very clear about what it means. He knelt on the ground in a hurry, and pleaded, give me another chance. I will apologize to the Legend of the Night, and I promise I won't make any mistakes again. No, Oni Okayama said lightly, there is no need to apologize to him. As one of the largest shareholders of Shibuya Underground Heroes Casino, how can I be threatened by a rising star? Even if you are a dog of mine, it depends on the owner. Isn't it? Yes, what you said. Gao Mulong didn't dare to make any rebuttals. Gui Uyama said what he said, and now it is important to save his life. Let the twisted shark go with you. As for how to do the game, I don't need to talk about it. Gui Uyama closed his eyes again after saying this, as if he didn't want to say a word. Understand, the little one understands. Takajilong was overjoyed. Oni Okayama bypassed him. This time, the twisted shark accompanies him to kill the Legend of the Night. Even if the Legend of the Night is the 7th sage of Shibuya, it is still to die. Chapter 90. Gao Mulong's Conspiracy. Chi Feng has already left the Underground Heroes Casino at this time. 20 million won is enough. Although the 20 million won is nothing at all in the Tokyo Underground Heroes Casino, Chi Feng doesn't want to win anymore. Compared with the Underground Heroes Casino in Shibuya, the Underground Heroes Casino in Tokyo is much brighter. There is neither a red packet collection nor anyone tracking it. It seems that it is normal for Chi Feng to win 20 million, and no one makes a secret move against him. Because there was no more exciting game, Chi Feng and Kurosawa Yilang left the Underground Heroes venue. After receiving a call, Kurosawa Yilang said a little apologetically, I'm sorry, brother Kurosawa, I have something to deal with. Go around in Tokyo by yourself, and I'll come to accompany you when I'm busy. Chi Feng waved his hand and said simply, no, go and do your own business. I want to go back. I'm so sorry, brother Dark Knight, I didn't have a good reception today. Kurosawa said apologetically. Nothing to be embarrassed. Let's exchange contact information and ask me if I have something to do. Chi Feng reported his mobile phone number to Kurosawa Ichiban, and the two exchanged goodbye. Chi Feng drove back to Shibuya directly by car. He had to quickly get rid of Takagi Dragon, otherwise such a villain would find out the clues of his identity sooner or later. It was already 10 o'clock in the evening. When Chi Feng came to the Underground Heroes Casino in Shibuya, Takagi was still there. Chi Feng went directly to Takagi's office. He wanted to solve the problem at once, but he couldn't be here. Kill him. It turns out that the 7th sage is coming here. The moment Gao Mulong saw Chi Feng, a trace of panic flashed in his eyes, but he immediately hid him. He stood up and greeted Chi Feng with a smile on his face. Chi Feng walked in blankly and sat on the sofa for himself. Standing beside Gao Mulong was a man with a scar on his face. Chi Feng felt his strength and he should be in harmony. Muto is almost the same, not to worry about it. Seeing the legend of Dark Knight so shameless and silent, Gao Mulong was not only not angry, but he also laughed and said, as the 7th sage Black still angry with me. The previous incident was indeed that I did not know Taishan, the dog's eyes are low, so I decided to give you a certain amount of compensation. How about we reconcile this? Chi Feng was very surprised. How could Gao Mulong speak so easily? In his impression, Gao Mulong was a guy who regarded money as his life, and now he actually compensated him in turn. Is it because I have become the 7 saints, so I am afraid? No matter what, if there is no perfect solution today, Chi Feng will not bypass Gao Mulong. Let's talk about it. Chi Feng is not in a hurry to deal with Gao Mulong, he wants to see what sincerity Gao Mulong has to impress him. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Takajilong smiled immediately. I will compensate you 50 million yen in my own name. What do you think? Chi Feng raised his eyebrows. To put it bluntly, 50 million is not a big deal to him now. If he played at the Tokyo Underground Casino for a while, he might earn 50 million. So Gao Mulong obviously does not have this condition. Sincerity. Not so. Chi Feng's tone became cold. Gao Mulong didn't show the slightest panic. He patted his head and said, oh, I forgot your methods. The money really can't make you heart-stricken. In addition to the 50 million, I'm giving you a Q-shaped tube. How about the reagents? Q-type reagent. Chi Feng had never heard of this word before, and didn't know what it was. Seeing that Chi Feng didn't seem to know Q-type reagent, the disdain in Takagi Long's eyes flashed away, and then he smiled and said, "You should know Daimon, right?" Chi Feng nodded and didn't speak. The Emperor League was something he only knew today. Seeing that Chi Feng knew about the Imperial League, Gao Mulong was not surprised. Since Dark Knight Legend became the Seven Sages, sooner or later he would come into contact with the Imperial League. Q-type reagents are specially researched for Quirk users. They can strengthen Quirk. No matter what Quirk Q-type reagents are, it can be improved, but it is still in the trial stage, but it is still very popular. It is used in Emperor League. Reagents, by the way, people in the gods also use this kind of thing. Gao Mulong waited for Chi Feng's response after finishing talking. Chi Feng understands it. He remembers what Kurosawa said before. This Q-type reagent is the kind of goods that only circulates in the hands of top powerhouses. It can strengthen the Quirk, so their status is as stable as Mount Tai. Remembering that the villain alliance can even make a big killer like Nomu, then the Q-type reagent is very easy to explain. If there is a Q-type reagent, I can reconcile with you. Although Chi Feng's tone was flat, Gao Mulong could also hear the excitement. Gao Mulong sneered in his heart. How could the Q-type reagent be something people like you can get involved? At this stage, it is difficult for even the three emperors to get it, let alone a newly promoted 7 sage. Well, as long as you are willing to settle the Q-type reagent, it is yours. Gao Mulong breathed a sigh of relief, and the plan was considered a success. Where are things? Chi Feng knew that things were not that simple, and it was impossible to compromise with Gao Mulong's character. Things are not here at the moment, please come with me to fetch them. Gao Mulong said with a smile. Chi Feng waved his hand and said, "First put 50 million into my account, and I will go with you." Damn, I'm going to die in trouble lousy. Gao Mulong cursed in his heart, but the play is still going to be a full set. Anyway, the card is still his if the Dark Knight Legend is dead, and it's okay to play 50 million in advance. Scar, go and send money to the 7 Black Sages. Gao Mulong ordered. Scar didn't dare to talk nonsense and went straight to work. Because the casino has a Chi Feng bank card account, Chi Feng's mobile phone will be accepted within 10 minutes. Reminder when the account arrives. Gao Mulong said at this time, "Black 7 Sages, can I go to get the Q-type reagent with me now?" Chi Feng already knew it, nodded and followed Gao Mulong away from the Underground Heroes venue, and took a special car. After half an hour, Chi Feng found that the driver was driving more and more in the wrong direction. He knew that Gao Mulong had no good intentions. This was indeed a conspiracy. How long will it take? Chi Feng pretended to be impatient. Immediately, we will arrive in 10 minutes. Gao Mulong wiped the sweat from his forehead and said, sitting with the Legend of Night under too much pressure. 10 minutes later, the car stopped in a desolate place. The surrounding area was desolate. Only in the desolate open space was a large iron factory building, which seemed to be thousands of square meters. Here, it's inside. Gao Mulong got out of the car hurriedly. After getting out of the car, he felt that his breathing became easier. Chi Feng's spiritual consciousness can't sweep that far, so I can't observe the situation in the iron factory, but since Chi Feng is here, he won't be afraid of Gao Mulong. Even if there is a strong person in it, he has to check it out. Chapter 91. When Chi Feng entered the plant, the lights in the plant came on. There was nothing in it except for some containers. In the center of this iron factory building, sitting next to a marble round table was a man with thorny hair. The man showed his tiger teeth when he saw him coming. No, it should be said that it is similar to the teeth of a shark, so it is more appropriate. Knowing that it was a game, Chi Feng not only did not go, but walked towards the center. When he had walked for nearly 10 steps, the iron gate behind him suddenly closed. Chi Feng looked around. The seal here is very tight. It is impossible to escape in a short time. However, he never thought about running away. Gao Mulong and Dao Scar quickly ran behind the twisted shark, and then laughed loudly. The Legend of the Night, I didn't expect you to be such a fool, and actually fell into my conspiracy. Chi Feng counted. There are 8 people here, including Takagi Dragon and Scar. Except that the sitting man gives him a sense of danger, the rest are about the same strength as Matsuzaki, or even not as good as Matsuzaki. Gao Mulong, is this your attitude? Chi Feng said with a smile, where is my Q-type reagent? Q-type reagent. Before Gao Mulong spoke, the twisted shark took out a light yellow test tube from his arms, shook the liquid in it and said, is that what you said? Chi Feng originally thought that Gao Mulong was a lie, but he actually had a Q-type reagent. It seems that he didn't come in vain this trip. As long as he kills these guys, the thing is his. Don't be silly of the Dark Knight tales. Is the Q-type reagent something that people like you can get? Gao Mulong said disdainfully. You just have a little strength, but you don't know how to keep a low profile. You have to provoke me. Come up. There is no doubt that you will die today. Chi Feng's tone was flat, without the slightest fluctuation. You think so? Do you take me down? Otherwise, do you know who this is? Gao Mulong pointed to the twisted shark beside him and said. Before Chi Feng spoke, Gao Mulong said, he is our top leader's capable man, twisting the shark, even the first three of the seven sages dare not say that he can be eaten. For Ghost Uyama and Takajalong, the strength of the twisted shark can completely kill the legend of the night. After all, the legend of the night is only a new seven sages. It is necessary to know that the position of the seven sages will go up. Differs greatly. The strength of the twisted shark can already be ranked in the top three of the seven sages, so there is no suspense at all. The reason why the twisted shark does not challenge the seven sages is not that he is not strong enough, but that he feels unnecessary. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Being the seven sages is not so free, but the seven sages are under the control of the Imperial League, and as a person of Ghost Ocean, it is naturally impossible for him to join an organization like the Imperial League. As the saying goes, the ways are different. The wrinkle shark frowned. This Gao Mulong's nonsense was a bit too much, but the legend of the night was about to die, and it would be good to give him a few more minutes to survive. He liked the feeling of controlling life and death. So that's the case, but do you know my true strength? Chi Feng sneered. In the eyes of the world, I am indeed just a person who uses air quirk, but you are too underestimating me. The twisted shark's eyes moved, and it turned out to be an air quirk. If this quirk grows to a certain level, it may threaten the status of the three emperors. At that time, even his boss, Okayama, will have to find a way to escape. But now there is no need to worry. No matter what means the Dark Knight legend hasn't used, even if it is used, it will still be dead. Gao Mulong said with a gloomy look. Don't talk nonsense, you will pretend to be compared before you die, even if your strength is above the sky, you will die. Shut up. The shark stood up and drank to Gao Mulong beside him. Although Gao Mulong was the third in command, he could not give him face. Gao Mulong shut up immediately, and took a few steps back, knowing that the twisted shark was about to do it. The twisted shark really looked like a shark. He reached out and took a shark sword from his back. The blade was blue with serrations, and it seemed extremely sharp. Chi Feng took a hand, and the airflow drew the long sword behind his back into the palm of his hand. To be honest, this villain twisted shark gave him a sense of danger, but Chi Feng was not a fearful person. He had died anyway. Once. Are you afraid of death the second time? Scum. Die. After the twisted shark stood up, he was 2 meters tall and smashed the round marble table in front of him with 1 foot. The sword in his hand was more than 20 meters away from Chi Feng, and it was slashed out with a blue color. The ripples swept out, and there seemed to be a breath of death in the air, rapidly spreading towards Chi Feng. After the twisted shark was slashed out, the Gao Mulong and others behind them all chilled and retreated one after another. This sword was too powerful, and they could feel the breath of death without facing it directly. It is indeed a twisted shark that can be compared with the top 3 of the 7 sages, and its strength is terrifying. Chi Feng's pupils shrank, and when the twisted shark slashed the sword, he knew that if he only relied on air manipulation and the 4th layer of Chi training, he would not be able to beat the opponent. This is what he has encountered except the villain alliance. The strongest opponent. The long sword in his hand slashed suddenly, and the white air current was mixed with dark blue thunder and lightning. This was the first time that Chi Feng used air manipulation and Thor's return to use the sword wave to cut it out. Boom. There was a shock, and the air seemed to be disordered. Chi Feng blocked the sword cut by the twisted shark, but Chi Feng knew that he had lost the sword. Huh, the twisted shark said suspiciously. Can the 7th sage of Shibuya actually catch him? Even Beizang Road Ichiro, who was ranked 2nd in the 7 sages, had to use his strength to take his sword. But this kid can actually block it. Sure enough, there are 2 things. The twisted shark suddenly felt something, and said, for your extraordinary strength, as long as you go to my boss, I promise that no one will pursue this matter again. Indeed, he had thoughts of loving talents, and he thought that Gui Uyama would also agree. After all, the legend of the night has a lot of room for growth. As long as it is well polished, it will also be a powerful helper in the future. Ah, senior twisted shark, the top commander meant to kill him. Gao Mulong exclaimed in surprise. He never thought that twisted shark would come here. If the legend of the night becomes Gui Aoshan's subordinate, then he Gao Mulong is the next unlucky person. You say one more word, I will unload your hand. The twisted shark's icy eyes swept over, and Gao Mulong trembled, never daring to say a word again. Chi Feng said with a sneer, you look too high on yourself. Since the boss behind you wants to kill me, you have to pay the price. I will find him personally in the future, so you don't need to introduce him. Okay. Very good. The twisted shark no longer has the idea of subduing Chi Feng. Even if such an unruly person is brought back, he will not obey the management and betray in the future. It would be better to simply kill it. Chapter 92. It's late now. Gao Mulong was happy. Since the legend of the night did not appreciate it was the best, he could not wait for the shark to kill the legend of the night immediately. Chi Feng no longer retains his strength, Thor's return is fully aroused, and the whole body is full of thunder, and the air manipulation is unscrupulously extended to control all the air flow within 10 meters. It's actually a double quirk. A shocked expression appeared in the eyes of the twisted shark. The legend of the night is already so powerful by air quirk alone. There are not no people with double quirks, but very few. Such people are either very strong or stronger. Unwilling to submit, then you are a dead end today. There is only excitement in the eyes of the twisted shark, without the slightest fear. Even if the legend of the night is a double quirk, it does not matter, he kills it the same. The shark's sword in his hand slashed out again, and a blue sword pattern swept towards Chi Feng. The next moment the twisted shark had moved and rushed towards Chi Feng. Chi Feng directly put the long sword away this time, and suddenly pushed his hands forward. An air ripple instantly collided with the sword pattern split by the twisted shark, barely blocking its power. At this time, the twisted shark had arrived in front of him. Chi Feng's punch with thunder and lightning collided with the opponent's fist. What surprised Chi Feng was that his thunder and lightning did not cause too much damage to the twisted shark, just let him slow down. So strong. Only then did Chi Feng realize that his strength is nothing at all in front of the strong. He still wanted to compare it with the top 3 of the 7 sages, and it seemed that it was still a bit inferior. However, Chi Feng had to take out Hockey, who was in the USJ facility at the time. He wanted to kill the twisted shark in front of him, otherwise he would die by himself. The shark sword of the twisted shark slashed towards Chi Feng's head. Chi Feng's 4th level Chi training level has a reaction speed that is 10 times, even dozens of times, that of ordinary people, and he hid in the blink of an eye. Past. Thunder Cannon. Chi Feng put his hands together in a triangular gesture, and suddenly an extremely bright thunder light flashed in the triangle area. The twisted shark was too late to react and was directly hit on the container by this thunder light. Chi Feng released again, and the twisted shark continued to move into the container. Sink. This Li Guang cannon comes from Dragon Ball's Tianjin Fan, his new Qigong cannon. Gao Mulong and the others were dumbfounded. Is this a legend of the night? How come there will be thunder and lightning? Even the predecessors of the twisted shark were beaten by this trick and had no power to fight back. Could it be that the strength of the legend of the night can compete with the first 3 of the 7 sages? Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. At this moment, Gao Mulong had a bad feeling in his heart. He wanted to leave here, but the next moment he discovered that the enclosed equipment here was made by sharks. You can't escape. After 10 thunder cannons, Chi Feng pursued the victory and released air compression at the location of the twisted shark. Boom. With a loud bang, the container was directly crushed into meatloaf. Chi Feng knew that the twisted shark did not die so easily, so he raised his right hand to gather thunder in the air. The left hand uses air manipulation to lock the air on the side where the twisted shark is located. What are you guys doing? Kill him together. Gao Mulong yelled anxiously. Do you want to wait until the twisted shark is killed before you do it? They are all idiots. After being yelled at by Gao Mulong, those talents realized that Senior Cutter Shark was in a bitter fight at the moment, and they immediately rushed towards Chi Feng. Chi Feng is at a critical moment. He is already weak just to deal with the twisted sharks. At this time, there can be no disturbance from the outside world. He suddenly raised his left leg and kicked out 6 feet against the 6 people who rushed. These 6 feet were incidental. With 6 wind blades, he slashed directly at the 6 people. Puff puff. The 3 of them didn't expect the Dark Knight legend under this situation to have other means, and they were directly smashed into the body and died. The other 3 are stronger, and have avoided the 3 wind blades of Chi Feng. One of them has a quirk, and a string of silk threads shoots out of his body to trap Chi Feng. As long as he was trapped by his thread, no matter who was unable to break free in a short time, the man sneered. Chi Feng absolutely can't let the opponent control, so he will definitely die. He gave up the air lock of the twisted shark, threw 3 fireballs with his left hand, burned all the entangled silk threads, and then flew to the 3 people. The 3 of them didn't have the time to react. They just dodged the 3 wind blades, and as a result, 3 fireballs came. This time they were not so lucky. They were directly hit. The fire spread to their bodies instantly. Howling painfully in the fire. Chi Feng immediately took out the quirk supplement and took a sip. Whether it was fireball or wind blade, it was extremely stamina consuming. Coupled with the use of his dual quirk, Chi Feng was already unable to do what he wanted. When the quirk supplement was finished, the twisted shark had already been ejected from the squashed container. Chi Feng reacted quickly, and Lei Ying slammed it down, which happened to hit the twisted shark. The twisted shark was already injured, and was hit by Lei Ying directly and flew away. The moment he hit the iron wall, the light exploded, and his upper body was dripping with blood. The dumbfounded Gao Mulong and Dao Scar stood in place at a loss. When it was over, everything was over. Perhaps even Ghost Uyama did not expect that the strength of the Legend of the Night would be so strong. For such a long time, the Legend of the Night has been pretending to be a pig and eating a tiger. It is obviously able to compare with the first 3 of the 7 sages, but is willing to be the 7th sage. Gao Mulong really wants to curse. Do you think you will die if you don't pretend to be? It's all right now, I'm dying. There was finally a trace of terror in the eyes of the twisted shark. He did not expect that the strength of the Legend of the Night would be so strong. He would not have been beaten like this, but the other party did not seem to give him time to react. It's so easy to kill, but now he knows he can't fight anymore. Stop. Seeing Chi Feng still wanting to do it, the shark screamed, as long as you let me go, this matter will stop here. If you kill me, Gui Aoshan will not let you go. Remember, your current strength can't compete with Oni Okayama. Chi Feng didn't mean to stop. The thunder gun in his hand is already condensed. If you let them go, then you will be letting the tiger return to the mountain. You can imagine the scene of the twisted shark coming back after returning. Chi Feng doesn't want to be missed. You guys want to stop now, it's too late. Chi Feng directly threw the condensed thunder spear after saying this, and quickly shot it at the twisted shark. The bloodshots in the eyes of the twisted shark are almost bursting. The Dark Knight legend is so extreme that it will not give him time to recover. If you give him some more time, let him use a killer move to reverse it. However, it was too late. The thunder spear had already been shot into his chest and passed through his heart. The body of the twisted shark was not Black Nomu. The only way to be shot by the thunder spear was death. The blood in his mouth flowed along his chin, and the twisted shark was nailed to the iron wall. Maybe the twisted shark would not understand that he had set up the lure to kill himself. Instead, he was killed. Chapter 93. Gao Mulong's legs were trembling, and the shark was strangled to death. One of the powerful admiral who was beside Guiyushan was dead. The legend of the Dark Knight is really terrible. For the first time Gao Mulong felt that his original decision was wrong. It was Shida Chuangta, a dog thing. If it weren't for Shimoda Chuangta to say that the legend of Dark Knight was born, he would still live a chic and comfortable life. How could such a murderer be provoked? The more he thought about it, the more regretful he was, and Gao Mulong suddenly sat on the ground with despair in his eyes. Chi Feng breathed a sigh of relief. The twisted shark was finally dead. He opened his hands. At this time, there was blood on both hands, which were all shaken by the blue sword pattern of the twisted shark. Next is Gao Mulong. Chi Feng turned and walked towards Gao Mulong. Suddenly he saw the tube of pale yellow potion on the ground and picked it up. Scar ran over immediately, and said as he ran, "Go around me." The fate has not been spoken yet, and the head has fallen to the ground. Chi Feng has always ignored this kind of character and killed it directly. After coming to Gao Mulong's side, he said, "Gao Mu, manager, didn't you expect you to have today?" Gao Mulong suddenly said, "You want to kill or slash it?" He knew that his quirk was useless for the legend of the night, and he didn't even think about resisting. Chi Feng sneered and said, "I won't kill you, someone will kill you." After talking, Chi Feng picked up Gao Mulong directly. After a few minutes of beating, the reinforced door of the iron building was broken. Chi Feng took Gao Mulong to the side of the special car. The driver was playing with his mobile phone and heard the voice, thought it was over, and he turned his head and smiled and said, "Management Takagi is over." Before he could finish a sentence, the driver opened his eyes wide and looked at the people outside the car in disbelief. He saw the legend of the night carrying Gao Mu Guanxi with one hand, and Gao Mu Guanxi could not resist like a dead fish. The driver just thought for a while and understood. The bureau carefully designed by Gao Mu failed. He doesn't know who else is in the iron factory, but at this time the legends of the night have all come out, and everyone in it must have died. Up. Go to this position. Chi Feng handed the phone to the driver. The driver took the second half of the nonsense and started the car. Chi Feng restrained Gao Mulong and closed his eyes. In this battle, Chi Feng is deeply aware of his own strength problems. As the saying goes, if he doesn't have enough skills, if Chi Feng doesn't have the 4th level Chi training base and double quirk, he would have been a corpse long ago. And he also understood very well that his body was too fragile, and he had not yet encountered the powerful villain. If he did, the opponent's body would definitely be dozens of times stronger than himself. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Take the twisted shark for example, his body is much stronger than Chi Feng, otherwise Chi Feng's violent and rainy attacks would make the twisted shark impossible to last for such a long time. After the sports festival was over, Chi Feng decided to give his physical body a level of strength first, and at least he would be invulnerable. Now he killed the boss of the Heroes Casino in Shibuya Underground. It seems to be called Oni Okayama. That guy will never let him go. He has sent a person to have the strength of the 7 saints. The ghost knows if that guy is stronger. Followed by his men. After this incident, Chi Feng no longer intends to act as a legend of the night, at least in the short term, he will not use it again. His dual quirk has not been exposed yet, and Gao Mulong's mobile phone has also been destroyed by him, so now only Takagi is there. Long alone knew that he was a double quirk, and all the others knew were dead. Arriving under the office building in Baosu City, Chi Feng blurred some of the obvious cameras, and then took Gao Mulong into the building. As for the driver Chi Feng did not kill, he would not kill anyone who has no grievances. Indiscriminately killing innocents. As for whether or not to inform, Chi Feng doesn't care. Anyway, this building has a lot of office space, and there are also some other offices. No one will put his ideas in this kind of place. Ingonim's office is diagonally across from this building, so it's very safe here. As long as you are not crazy, you will generally not make trouble here. Shangda, see who I brought. Chi Feng threw Gao Mulong directly after entering the door, throwing him to the ground. Hirano Taisho and Muto Matsuzaki played cards, but Takagi Ryu fell directly 1 meter in front of the 3 of them. He remembered the appearance of Gao Mulong when Ping Yuan was turned into gray. He immediately stood up and slammed the card in his hand on Gao Mulong's head, then stepped on Gao Mulong's head and said, Takajilong, your kid still remembers me not. Muto and Matsuzaki were a little speechless. The three of them were playing the landlord. Seeing that the landlord Ping Yuan Shonga was about to lose, the cards were thrown away. But Muto and Matsuzaki were still very surprised. The Dark Knight Senpai had actually captured Takagi Dragon. Aren't they afraid of the forces behind him? Takagi Dragon's head was stepped on and he couldn't see Hirayama's face, but the voice was still familiar to him, but he didn't speak because he saw Muto and Matsuzaki sitting on the side. From the beginning, his decision was wrong from the beginning. Not only did he give his two subordinates to the Legend of the Night, but he also lost his life. If he regrets taking medicine, he will definitely buy one with all his savings. Regret medicine. Seeing Gao Mulong didn't speak, Ping Yuan Shonga kicked him over. Then he exposed his hand and said to Gao Mulong, unexpectedly, my hand is safe and sound. At this time, Chi Feng realized that the plain Magnificent, which had no pinky, actually had a pinky again. Ping Yuan Shonga laughed and said to Chi Feng, my quirk is regeneration. As long as I eat enough, I can regenerate or strengthen my body parts. The reason I didn't tell you at the time was that I wanted you to avenge me. Chi Feng doesn't like to be deceived, and his face is a bit unsightly. At the beginning, he felt like protecting a calf, so he was very angry and wanted to avenge Ping Yuan Shonga. After all, this matter was caused by him. But because of this, it was a bit too much to deceive him. You must know that he risked his life to find Gao Mulong. If it weren't for him, Chi Feng, if he were replaced by another person, that person would have died in the hands of the shark. Seeing Chi Feng's face turn dark, Ping Yuan Shonga realized his mistake, and quickly said with a smile, my black brother, you can forgive me, I will ask you to eat whatever you want. For such a stubborn Ping Yuan hero, it is very rare to be able to say such a thing. Ping Yuan Shonga's heart is dripping blood too, so don't agree to old hay, or I will lose my blood. Okay, you said it yourself. Unexpectedly, Chi Feng didn't pursue it directly. Ping Yuan Shonga almost vomited a mouthful of old blood. Angrily he gave Gao Mulong 4 or 5 kicks, and Gao Mulong's face turned blue when he kicked it. Chapter 94 declared war. Gao Mulong, you solve it yourself. Chi Feng left after speaking a few words with Muto. It is already 12 o'clock in the morning, and he must go home, otherwise Sister Ying will be worried. After Chi Feng left, Ping Yuan Shong looked viciously at Gao Mulong and said, let's talk about it, how do you want to die? For people like Gao Mulong, Ping Yuan Shonga would not let it go. If he hadn't reacted to the situation, he might have died long ago, but now it is the opposite. It is Gao Mulong's turn. What Ping Yuan Shonga didn't expect was that Gao Mulong suddenly laughed, I can't beat the Legend of the Night, but you fat man is just a quirk, I will kill you. Dodge. Fortunately, Muto was here, kicking Ping Yuan Shonga away with one kick, turning his hands into 2 long swords, and directly slashing with the XGN Chi towards Takagi Dragon. Takagi Ryu's body that had just risen violently was directly slashed, and the person was split into 4 sections. The third in charge of the Heroes Casino in Shibuya Underground died. Ah! Pharaoh screamed, standing up and pointing at Muto, why are you kicking me? If I don't kick you, you may be dead. Takajilong's quirk is a pointer. If you are so close to him, your heart will be gone, Muto said with a smile. Without a heart, your regeneration ability will be stronger. It's also in vain. Ping Yuan Shonga was frightened by Muto for a while. He suddenly turned his head and looked. Gao Mulong broke into 4 sections and fell to the ground. He suddenly cried out, I'm going to kill him with my own hands. You just killed him. What can I do? You may be dead if I take the shot late, so I won't be able to explain to Senior Black Knight. Muto spread his hands, took a cup of tea and sipped his saliva after sitting down. To be honest, this may be the most correct decision he made by Muto. If he is still following Takagi Dragon, the body may have been cold. How could he work in this kind of office? Damn. Ping Yuan Shonga cursed looking at Gao Mulong's body, it's cheaper for you. Then he said to Matsuzaki in the kitchen, Matsuzaki, dispose of this corpse. It will smell bad in a moment.
Matsuzaki patted his bald head, feeling a little helpless. After he came here, his life was a lot more comfortable, but he did all the usual chores, and he did all the cooking and buying vegetables by himself. If this continues, he may am going to become a family guarantor. Matsuzaki, can you hear me? Hirano's voice came over.
Matsuzaki curled his lips and said, don't remind me, let me remind you that supper is gone. Hirayama Yuta just stopped, after all, only Matsuzaki can cook here. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chi Feng spent the weekend with Sister Ying at home. On Monday, when he checked in at school, the structure of the sports festival was already a common topic among the students. Support section, business section, general section, and heroes section will gather together to conduct qualifiers for various competitive events according to the school year. Students who win the qualifiers can enter the main competition, which is the round-robin competition of each school year. Mr. Chi Feng, I heard that you were ill last Friday. Does it matter? Izuku walked over and asked concerned. Brother Midoriya, I'm okay, you can concentrate on preparing for the sports festival, otherwise the boy Bakugo won't wait for you. Chi Feng smiled and patted Midoriya Izuku on the shoulder. What are you talking about? Bakugo Katsuki lowered his legs on the table and stared at Chi Feng and said, I'm ready to step on you. Oh, is it? Chi Feng laughed, I love to hear it. Really an annoying guy. Bakugo Katsuki squeezed his fist and turned his head to the side. Midoriya Izuku is a little embarrassed. In this class, I am afraid that only Chi Feng can help Xiao Sheng. Could it be that Chi Feng was born to overcome Xiao Sheng? Hey, smelly for a long time, Bakugo Katsuki yelled without looking back, come here. Huh, Midoriya Izuku was a little surprised. Today's Xiaosheng was a little strange, and he would talk to himself. Get off now. Bakugo Katsuki yelled. Oh, Midoriya Izuku hurried over, and Bakugo Katsuki looked at Midoriya Izuku and said, smelly long time, don't be the bottom in the game, otherwise it would be embarrassing to say that I met you. Midoriya Izuku froze for a moment, Xiaosheng still cared about him, which made him very moved. Bakugo Katsuki's eyes met with Midoriya Izuku, and Bakugo instantly roared. Don't think too much, quickly disappear from my sight. Izuku nodded and said, Xiaosheng, I won't lose to you. After speaking, he returned to his seat. Cut. Bakugo Katsuki put his leg on the table again, and the corner of his eye glanced at Chi Feng, feeling a little irritable. What do you guys do for Class A? Ida Tenya raised his hand and asked, this kind of situation would almost never happen. Today, there is another department blocking the heroes Class A, which is really strange. What are you doing? I can't get out anymore. Mineta Minoru cried out a little speechlessly, what are you doing here? Of course it's investigating the enemy's situation, you miscellaneous fish. Bakugo Katsuki walked out with a school bag on one shoulder and came to the other students in front of the department and said, it's a waste of effort to do this kind of thing. Get out of here, you guys. Ida Tenya immediately murmured. Don't call the person you meet for the first time a fool. At this time, a voice came from the crowd, thinking to come over and see, what are the roles of the rumored Class A. It is said that there is also a guy named Chi Feng, but it turns out to be lame. Are all the students in the heroes department like this? Shinso Hitoshi walked up from the crowd, and said with a plain expression, it's really disappointing to see such a guy. A lot of people in this school were divided into general subjects and the other two subjects because they failed to pass the heroes subject. Did you know? Shinso Hitoshi said to Bakugo Katsuki, the school also gave us opportunities like this. It is said that we will reconsider whether we are included in the heroes section based on our performance in sports festivals. If we enter, we will come out. Detecting the enemy, Shinso Hitoshi's gaze slowly swept across Heroes Division A. At least I came today to declare war, even if it's Heroes Division. If you are too overwhelmed, be careful to be overthrown by us in an instant. This person is bold enough. We still have Mr. Chi Feng. Ida Tenya thought this way in their hearts. Sure enough, Chi Feng stood up after hearing this, walked slowly in front of Shinso Hitoshi, looked at him and said, don't be stupid, 10 of you can't be my opponent. What Chi Feng said is not wrong at all. Although Shinso Hitoshi's quirk is very strong, as long as he doesn't talk to him, there is no control, and the winner can be determined in an instant. Chapter 95 UA Sports Festival. Who are you? Shinso Hitoshi narrowed his eyes, and he felt that this guy was a little different. Me. Chi Feng grinned. I am the Chi Feng you just mentioned. Shinso Hitoshi's eyes flashed and said, are you Chi Feng? Why, do you have any advice? Chi Feng chuckled. After a few seconds of silence, Shinso Hitoshi said, it is said that you are the strongest in the Heroes Division A class. I hope you are worthy of the name. I'm from Class B next door. Tetsu suddenly jumped out and shouted at Bakugo Katsuki. I heard that you played against villain. I'm going to come over and ask a few words, but your kid seems to have gone to heaven. Bakugo Katsuki made a cut, turned his head and walked out of the crowd, ignoring Tetsu at all. Wait a minute, Bakugo, how will it end this time? I blame you for making us the target of public criticism. Hiroshima Eijiro ran over. So what? Bakugo Katsuki said flatly, but aggressively, as long as you beat them, it's okay. After Bakugo Katsuki left, Hiroshima Eijiro clenched his fists and almost burst into tears. Simple and rude, you guys. Midoriya Izuku recalled what Bakugo Katsuki said to him before, it's just the beginning. I'm just beginning. Listen to me, I want to be the number one here. Xiao Sheng. Midoriya Izuku seemed to have some kind of enlightenment, thinking of some past events, the lofty ambitions of his classmates, the words of the predecessors of the night, and the encouragement of Chi Feng. The UA Sports Festival will be held 2 weeks later, and will be broadcast on TV. As long as you show success, the possibility of becoming a professional heroes will undoubtedly be greatly improved. Before the day of the event, we did not know what event to participate in, but everyone, each should have started preparations. After 2 weeks of talking fast or slow, Chi Feng got rid of the thorn in Gao Mulong's heart, and no longer used the identity of the Legend of the Night to act in the night, so the bad people began to move around again. Originally, the night crime rate in Bozu City was significantly reduced by Chi Feng. During this time, the night legend did not appear, and the crime rate in Bozu City began to rise again. Some professional heroes began to miss the night legend one after another. Although the order to capture Underworld was given above, no professional heroes would really catch Underworld. The most was to remind them that it was enough to stop, and then came out to be scared, and to have a meaning. In the end, the legend of the night seemed to be frightened, and it really didn't appear. 2 weeks have passed since this, and no one knew where the legend of the night had gone. It seemed that it disappeared out of thin air. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Originally, some professional heroes were very fortunate that the Dark Knight legend was there at night. They could get off work earlier without much get off work. A few people gathered to play cards. As a result, Dark Knight legend disappeared immediately, and the crime rate immediately increased. They couldn't help it. The night patrol started, and it was more than 10 o'clock before 11 o'clock to go back. The reason why Chi Feng didn't go out to earn salvation points was because he was afraid that the top leader of the Heroes Casino in Shibuya, Oni Okayama, now that the sports festival started, he didn't want to fight against guys of unknown strength like Oni Okayama. The most important thing is that his current strength is not enough to contend with Ghost Uyama. Sending any twisted shark over will be as strong as this, and if there is another one stronger than the twisted shark, he will not be dead. In the past 2 weeks, apart from staying with Sister Ying, Chi Feng absorbs spiritual energy on a daily basis, and then repeatedly tries new tricks on his quirk. At present, his quirk level is not high enough, so some of the more powerful moves cannot be done. Need to upgrade the quirk level. Everyone is improving themselves in Nuri, especially Bohao and Shoto Todoroki. The goal they both want to catch up with is Chi Feng, so they must work hard. Soon, the time came to the morning before the start of the sports festival, and reporters outside the UA High School had already blocked the water around the door. The entrance security check is too cumbersome. The female reporter who appeared at UA High School last time said helplessly. The male colleague at the side comforted. After all, I was just attacked by villain before. There is no way to conduct strict inspections. And this year, there are even people who are very critical of the school's sports festival. Arousing heated discussion is equivalent to rating increase. This year's focus is indeed Class A in the first year. The female reporter was energetic and motivated. Please give me a takoyaki. Yuga's voice sounded, and the takoyaki boss raised his head and his eyes lit up. Wow, this is not Mount Lady. The Heroes Academy has long been crowded with people, and it has become a mecca for food and snacks. Some professional heroes and citizens are all enjoying it. No green seaweed. Mount Lady said with greedy saliva on the corner of her mouth. The boss smiled and said, one serving is 500 yen. Huh, Mount Lady was taken aback. Then suddenly she twisted her posture charmingly, looking at the takoyaki boss a little shyly, and said, well, I don't have cash in my hand. Laughter. The takoyaki boss was about to fall off his eyes, and he handed out the freshly made takoyaki. His face flushed and said, I'll give you the free order. Thank you, Mount Lady suddenly said loudly, her eyes full of excitement. Death Chiquan and Kamui Woods on the side suddenly complained, don't you have any self-esteem? The two waited for Mount Lady to buy takoyaki and walked on the snack street. Death Chiquan looked at the crowd and said, although we also want to take this opportunity to find talents, since we have taken over the guard task, we had to put one out first. Let go. Quote. Mount Lady put the takoyaki in his mouth and gave a gratified gratitude. It is said that the school has called professional heroes from all over the country this year. Yeah, after all, this is a rare event. The three of Kamui Woods chatted a little. Eating and drinking here is equivalent to alert. Chi Feng was listening to the students' complaints in the dressing room at the moment. Combat suits could not be worn for the competition, only designated sportswear. At this time, Monitor Ida Tenya rushed in from the door and shouted to the students in the dressing room, classmates, are you all ready? It's our turn to play soon. Shoto Todoroki came to Chi Feng at this time, looked at Chi Feng plainly and said, Mr. Chi Feng. Mr. Boom, any advice? Chi Feng smiled and got up from the chair. No matter what, I will defeat you in this sports festival. I hope you can use all your strength. Shoto Todoroki said solemnly. Full strength. Chi Feng almost laughed. Even the top 3 of the 7 sages were scared when all his strength was taken out. Mr. Boom, are you sure? But Chi Feng wouldn't say this, just said, don't worry, Mr. Wang, I will show mercy. Kirishima Eijiro rushed up, patted Shoto Todoroki on the shoulder and said, the game is about to start. It's all in the same class, so stop fighting. Shoto Todoroki slapped Kirishima's hand and walked towards the door blankly. I don't plan to unite and love you with you. It's my freedom to do what I want. Chapter 96 Work Hard, Sao Nien. Chi Feng didn't care about Shoto Todoroki's declaration of war. No matter who it is in Yua High School, he could not be his opponent, unless there is a strong one in the 2nd or 3rd grade, but Chi Feng has not seen one at present. Hey, present mic appeared on the huge facility screen. Let's wait and see. Audiences, hordes of media professionals. This year you guys' favorite high school students run out of youth, and the Yua Sports Festival is about to begin. Everybody, are you ready? Students enter the first grade area. At this moment, all professional heroes, all spectators looked at the passageway of the competition venue, and all the students of Heroes SA class came out with dazzling brilliance. Standing next to his classmates, Chi Feng looked at the crowds of spectators in front of him, and couldn't help but feel excited. He remembered that when he was at war with the Trident in Shushan County, there were at least 10,000 people in the entire underground Heroes venue. But compared to this sports festival, it's insignificant. There are at least 100,000 people here, and it's really crowded. A sports festival, the young seedlings of heroes will start a fierce battle of life and death. The annual battle is extremely big, but you must all be looking forward to these guys. Present Mike raised his hands on the screen and said loudly, the group of miraculous new stars who were attacked by villain but survived the storm with their iron will, that is, Heroes, Grade 1 Class A, right. The people from Heroes Division A gradually walked into the venue. Midoriya Izuku looked around. They were all people. He was a little nervous. This was the first time he saw this kind of big scene. Whether you can exert your strongest strength under the crowd's onlookers is also one of the qualities that heroes must have. Ida Tenya has thin sweat on his forehead, but he is exceptionally calm. Hold us high. Hiroshima Eijiro looked around. He had never seen so many people in one place. It feels so nervous, right, Bakugo? The ghost is nervous. I just want to go and kill. Bakugo Katsuki said with a grin. Although this class will be less popular in the future, it has also gathered a group of talented people. Present Mike pointed with a big hand. At this moment, a group of students walked out of the tunnel again. Heroes Class 1 Class B. Tetsu took the Heroes Division 1 Grade B class and walked out with a high spirit. Then there are CDE classes in general subjects, FGH in support subjects, IJK in business subjects, and UA1 grades. The players swear. Midnight stood on the stage and said to all the first-year students below. Wow. The chief referee in the first grade of this year is 18 Band Heroes Midnight. Someone on the audience stage blushed and said, where is the principal? Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. The principal is in charge of the third grade competition area as in previous years. Someone replied. At this moment, Hiroshima Eijiro's face was a little red. Miss Midnight, what kind of dress is that? Standing in the crowd, Chi Feng's eyes brightened, and he finally saw Midnight wearing this tights. This figure is so good. If it weren't for his good concentration, he might just leak out, and then the foundation would be completely ruined. As expected of 18 Band Heroes. Kaminari Denki nodded. Tokiyami Fumikage interjected. As an 18 ban, is it really okay to be a teacher in high school? Like. Mineta Minoru immediately gave a thumbs up, and the eye-opening boss looked at some places of Midnight. Quiet. Midnight knows that her dress will arouse heated discussion, but there is no way. She is 18 Band Heroes. No matter what you can't stand. She likes to wear it like this. Player representative, 1A Chi Feng came to the stage to speak. Quote. Chi Feng. FCK. Shouldn't it be Bakugo Katsuki? How could it be him? For a while, everyone in the first grade looked at Chi Feng, and Chi Feng suddenly felt a lot of hostile gazes, even admiration. It doesn't matter. I'm just me. Chi Feng doesn't care. Anyway, he has passed the stage of being strangled. It doesn't matter if he is high profile now, so he walked to the stage where Midnight was. Why isn't it me? Bakugo Katsuki always felt something was wrong. It should be him who went up to speak. Ahem. Chi Feng tapped the microphone to see how the sound was. Midnight said awkwardly. Student Chi Feng, there is no problem with the microphone. Oh, okay, sorry. Chi Feng chuckled. This guy is a bit interesting. It seems to be Chi Feng. Some professional heroes on the audience stage chatted. Some people think that Chi Feng pretends to be better, and some people think that Chi Feng is very Quirk. In short, countless eyes are gathered on Chi Feng. It's this kid again. In the bar where Villain Alliance is located, Shigaraki Tamura hit the wine table with his left hand, and started scratching his chin with his right hand. He hates this kid very much, and now he knows his name is Chi Feng. Shigaraki Tamura, calm down. Although we were defeated, the Black Nomu came back safe and sound, and has been transformed to be stronger than before. Now even the symbol of peace, All Might, can't defeat him. Kurogiri wears the clothes of a bartender. Wiping the red wine glass, he said flatly. The Black Nomu targeted All Might. Of course, it has an overwhelming power against other professional heroes, but as long as All Might is removed, other professional heroes are not a concern. Shigaraki Tamura stopped grabbing his chin. The reason why he doesn't move these days is because he is enhancing and transforming Nomu. Today's Nomu is stronger than the previous USJ facility, but the downside is that the stronger it is, the more sluggish it is, but it doesn't matter, as long as it can kill All Might, everything is worth it. On the other hand, he has begun to recruit his subordinates. Although there are many people in the Villain Alliance, most of them are small characters. If they encounter a slightly more powerful heroes, they will undoubtedly lose. Only with strong subordinates can Villain Alliance resounded in this world. That, Chi Feng brooded for a while. After all, so many people looked at him, and it was inevitable that he was a little nervous. He usually acts as a legend of the night, and others can't see his true face, so he is extremely calm. But now it's different. His appearance is exposed to the public's eyes. Many of these people may have seen his identity as the legend of the night. This is also uncertain. Perhaps among so many people, there are many underground heroes, and it is even possible for the 3 emperors and 7 saints to watch here. After all, the underground heroes are so huge, except for the professional heroes on the surface, the underground heroes are the most prosperous. What I want to say is, everyone eat and drink, and if you have motivation, do well. Although, I was the champion in the end, but I can't beat your momentum. So, work hard. Chi Feng laughed, raised his hands to applaud the students who were bewildered and even wanted to beat Chi Feng. Chapter 97. Obstacle Race. Indeed, the students below all want to beat Chi Feng. What are they talking about on stage? I can't help it anymore. Bakugo Katsuki said grimly. Ida Tenya immediately said, control it, Bakugo-san. Yeah, it will be fine in a while. This time I also think Chi Feng is too pretending. Hiroshima Eijiro said behind Bakugo. How do I think Chi Feng is a little handsome? Hagakure Toru said to himself. In addition to these people, some people in the audience also feel that Chi Feng owes it to him, but there are some bigwigs who are interested in Chi Feng. If Chi Feng really gets the first result in the end, they will find a way to recruit. Midoriya Izuku is not surprising. Chi Feng's personality is sometimes very calm, sometimes a bit humorous, and sometimes even stronger than Xiaosheng. After Chi Feng finished speaking, he walked down the stage very calmly. No one was left in the eyes of everyone trying to tear him apart. Okay, let's get started quickly. The first project is the so-called pre-selection. Every year, a large number of students will retire in this session. Midnight waved his whip. Okay, the first project that determines the fate. A big screening screen appeared behind Midnight who was talking, and the items inside were constantly beating. No one would know what would appear. They all looked at the screening screen with anticipation and nervous eyes. That's it. After the screening screen stopped, 4 words appeared, obstacle race. All the students in 11 classes will participate in this race. The course will go around the stadium and the total length is about 4 kilometers. Our school has always taken freedom as a selling point. As long as you are on the track, you can use whatever means. Midnight licked his sexy lips and waved his hand and said, it's all right, it's all in place. Everyone moved to the waiting area. In a huge room, Chi Feng stood in the crowd with a little sense of excitement and no tension at all. Shoto Todoroki obviously saw Chi Feng's state. He couldn't do it without any tension at all. Although he was determined to win, he couldn't do it without reacting to Chi Feng at all. Really not. Knowing how Chi Feng trains, he is so calm. Midoriya Izuku was obviously a little worried. When he saw Chi Feng standing so calmly in the middle of the crowd and looking away, he seemed to have found the mainstay and cheered for himself again. Chi Feng looked around not to find Shoto Todoroki and others, but to see beautiful women. This is a rare opportunity. The whole first grade is basically here. Although the beautiful women are still in their class, there are many other departments. Start. Midnight gave an order, and all the students who had been prepared rushed out. Only Chi Feng was used to walk. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Okay, let's go live. Present Mike began to explain into the microphone, and suddenly turned to Aizawa Shota on the side and said, commentary R, you, ready? You forced me to come here, right? Aizawa Shota was speechless, and Present Mike had a questioning expression, as if you didn't know it. Straightforward, dry eye, what do you think is the highlight of the prologue? Present Mike asked. Aizawa Shota looked at the exit at this time, and these students were all huddled together. Hey, the door to the starting point is too narrow, the people in the crowd complained loudly. Midoriya Izuku was squeezed into a deformed face, and the small grape Mineta Minoru was even worse. Rubbing back and forth between her legs, her face was almost peeling. Chi Feng stood at the end of the crowd watching these people squeeze me, I squeeze you, it feels a bit funny, he is not in a hurry, this obstacle race is too simple for him, let these guys entertain themselves first. Suddenly a cold swept across, Chi Feng stepped back 2 steps, he knew Shoto Todoroki had taken the shot, and sure enough, the ground froze the next moment, and even the doorway froze. Shoto Todoroki rushed out first, followed by Bakugo Katsuki, Yaoyorozu Momo, Hiroshima Eijiro and Aoyama Yuga. Too naive, boom classmate. Yaoyorozu Momo used the quirk to create an iron rod and dragged her up to the sky, leaping forward. Don't want to be satisfied, half of the bastard. The flames of both hands flashed, and they flew quickly towards Shoto Todoroki. All the students left the first screening, which was the obstacle at the door. Chi Feng walked out slowly when there was no one in the room. Shoto Todoroki and Bakugo Katsuki obviously saw Chi Feng lagging behind. For them, no matter what tricks Chi Feng played, as long as they were fast enough, they would not be able to catch up. A person who is too arrogant will capsize. Bakugo Katsuki grinned. It is rare that he, an arrogant person, would also say that others are arrogant. Obviously Chi Feng has reached a certain level of arrogance. Shoto Todoroki and Bakugo Katsuki did not pay attention to Chi Feng anymore. For them, Chi Feng himself was dead. Present Mike discovered that Chi Feng was standing alone at the gate, and the other students had already disappeared. He was still walking there slowly. What's the matter with Chi Feng, a dark horse-like heroes, who actually walks during the game? Present Mike obviously knows that Chi Feng does not have that knowledge of Aizawa Shota, so he is very surprised. In the USJ incident, only a few people know the strength of Chi Feng, of which Aizawa Shota is the most aware. He is not walking, but has great confidence. Aizawa Shota's voice came from the microphone, and all the students heard it. Some students have not even seen Chi Feng. They only know that there is a very powerful dark horse in the Heroes Class A. Only then did they know that the person at the end is the dark horse Chi Feng. Cut, it's too good to pretend, if you have the strength, you must die. Some people don't believe in evil, this has opened the gap, how can they catch up again? Only half of the people listened to Aizawa Shota's words. Shoto Todoroki and Bakugo Katsuki quickly rushed to the next level. They knew that Aizawa Shota was right. Chi Feng is very confident and he has this strength. Everyone showed their magical powers, and made effective use of their quirk. At this time, an imaginary enemy appeared and knocked out some students. Okay, I ran into obstacles as soon as I came up. The first obstacle to appear is the robot hell. Present Mike said excitedly. A row of giant imaginary enemies appeared in front of everyone. The students who had already widened the gap also shortened the distance at this time, and they were blocked by the giant imaginary enemies. Isn't that the 0-point imaginary enemy in the entrance exam? Kaminari Denki took 2 steps back in fear. Who is responsible for the manufacturing costs of these gadgets? Yaoyorozu Momo was very surprised. These giant imaginary enemies are all burning money. Chapter 98. A rare opportunity. I really hope you can prepare some more powerful obstacles. Shoto Todoroki's self-confidence in his flat tone was undoubtedly revealed. After pressing one hand on the ground, an ice stream spread rapidly, and his speed also broke out at this moment, moving the giant imaginary enemy closest to him rushed away. My bastard daddy is still watching, but I can't make him laugh. Shoto Todoroki's eyes were sharp, his right hand passed the ground and struck the giant imaginary enemy suddenly, and a huge ice burst appeared, instantly freezing the giant imaginary enemy into an ice sculpture. 1A, boom, taking care of both annihilating the enemy and obstructing the opponent at the same time. It's so old-fashioned, awesome, and instantly opened the gap, but how to say it, it feels really, too overcast. Present Mike explained loudly with reasonable and highly strategic action. Aizawa Shota commented. It's worthy of being a student enrollment. It's the first time to face the robot hell, but villain can't get close to him at all. There is no doubt that the elite demeanor is obvious. Present Mike said loudly again. For UA High School, these elite students are worthy of praise. Each of them is a seedling of future professional heroes, and their current strength can reflect the future powerful hero's position. So the professional heroes who came to watch the UA Sports Festival, the office's heroes and the underground heroes, all think so and want to tap talents. After all, these young birds will fly out of the woods sooner or later and fly to the wider sky. That kind of monster is impossible to win. Midoriya's mother watched the live broadcast of the sports festival with tears in her eyes. She saw these monsters and knew that Izuku could not win. It was terrible. Run away, Izuku. We must always keep away the obstacles of the people around us, and at the same time solve the robots. Midoriya Izuku stared at the huge robot hell in front of him. Okay, think about it, what should I do? Hey, someone is underneath. Some people suddenly found that the robot hell had pressed some students under them. I won't be crushed to death. A man with an inch-sized head said with his eyes wide open, will this sports festival be deadly? Suddenly there was a movement under the robot hell. Kirishima Ajiro broke out of it. Who is going to die? 1A's Kirishima is actually crushed underneath, it's so funny. Present Mike shouted haha, as if he was not worried about killing people at all. Boom that bastard, and deliberately freeze them when the robot's feet are unstable. If it weren't for me, it would be a fate. Kirishima gritted his teeth. Class A really. At this moment, a silver figure rushed out from under the machine in the other direction, and Tetsu appeared. They are all annoying bastards. Ah, Tai J of Group B is also underneath, fate. Present Mike laughed and said. The quirks of these two people are the same, which can be said to be very similar. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. If it weren't for me, it would have been fatal. What everyone didn't expect was that Tetsu's words were the same as Kirishima Ajiro's words, which was a bit funny. At this time, Bakugo Katsuki used the quirk to rush towards the sky and flew in front of the robot closest to him, but unexpectedly, he did not take a strong attack, but ran behind. Shiro Honta and Tokiyami Fumikage also hitchhiked by the way, and followed closely behind. On the teacher's lounge, a group of UA high school teachers were watching the game. Sure enough, many of the leading echelons are from Class A. The marksman said. All Might's thin image looks a bit serious, other subjects and students in Class B are not bad, but. Before All Might had finished speaking, the marksman suddenly pointed to Chi Feng, who was walking slowly behind him, and said, I remember this is also a student in the Heroes A class, right? All Might's previous attention was on Izuku, and now the sharpshooter pointed to Chi Feng. He realized that Chi Feng was still behind. Yes, He is Chi Feng from Class A. All Might touched his forehead. He was worried about Midoriya's grades and courage as well as Chi Feng. Fortunately, Chi Feng's youth hasn't done anything unusual recently, and the police station's eyes have not been so tightly fixed. But this kind of annual event sports festival, Chi Feng boy, actually so calm. All Might knows that Chi Feng's strength may be the strongest in the class, but no matter how strong you are, Boy Bang and Boy Bakugo have already rushed so far, and Chi Feng is still walking slowly not far from the exit. In the entire sports festival competition, Chi Feng may be a landscape. This incident was not only discovered by sharp-eyed marksmen, but also by many people on the audience stage. It's not that Quirk is incompetent or injured. It's really lazy, and there is no such trend in the game at all. Which class is that? People have already rushed for a little while, and he is still walking there. You mean him? Someone said with a smile. It is said that he is a dark horse in the first grade Heroes Division A. He helped a lot in the USJ Villain Alliance incident. It is said that he is quite strong. He is Chi Feng. Someone also said at this time, but do you look at him like a dark horse? I think the black bug is about the same. Someone complained. Some people looked at Chi Feng, and sure enough, it didn't look like a dark horse at all, but like a salted fish. Chi Feng didn't know that it was already being talked about at this moment. He looked at the students in front and was almost out of sight. He stretched out and said, "It's almost there." As soon as the voice fell, Chi Feng's body was full of thunder and lightning, and the ground under his feet was scorched black, and people rushed forward like an afterimage, as fast as lightning. What's the matter? What about Chi Feng? At this time, someone discovered that the Chi Feng they were following had suddenly disappeared. Wasn't he still walking just now? He moved. The sharpshooter's gaze was so sharp, Chi Feng moved like lightning and he saw it immediately. All Might also saw clearly Chi Feng's trajectory and couldn't help but wonder, Chi Feng's strength is more than twice as strong as that of the USJ incident. This strength has grown too fast. I am afraid that some professional heroes will also face Chi Feng. Defeated. If Chi Feng knew that All Might commented on him, he would definitely jump up and shout, "Uncle O, stop joking, okay. How can ordinary professional heroes have played the Seven Saints? Don't even think about it. His speed is very fast. I am afraid it is much faster than Ida Tenya, the monitor of Class A." The sharpshooter nodded and gave Chi Feng a higher evaluation. The teachers present were also silent. Some of them were wondering, did they have this kind of strength when they were this age? Chapter 99. Chi Feng in everyone's eyes. While the students were trying to solve the villain in front of them, Chi Feng had already come to them. With his right hand facing the sky, with a sudden downward wave, a thunder pillar shot out from the body and appeared abruptly on the top of the robot's head. The huge robot was directly damaged by the blow and fell to the ground. Chi Feng didn't take a lazy walk anymore. A ball of thunder burst out from his feet, and the person turned like a top and rushed towards a huge imaginary enemy in the distance. Lei Tong Lei. The violent thunder and lightning directly tore the chest of the giant imaginary enemy into a big hole. Chi Feng passed through the big hole and chased after Shoto Todoroki and others in the distance. This is. When Shiozaki from Class B reacted, Chi Feng had already knocked down two giant imaginary enemies, and the man had already disappeared from sight. He had seen the blue thunder light with his own eyes just now, and his naked eyes could hardly keep up with this speed. They said that besides a guy who uses electricity, there is another guy in Class A who can manipulate thunder and lightning. Could it be? Shiozaki suddenly remembered, isn't that the dark horse Chi Feng, the same person who used to speak loudly on the stage before? I thought that he had been thrown away long ago, but I didn't expect that the other party just didn't want to leave at all, and only then showed this amazing strength. Kendo Itsuka, Mano Manito, Shinso Hitoshi, Gujin Ruzao and others all saw this scene and were shocked. This is the legendary dark horse Chi Feng, who can fight side by side with the teacher who is a professional heroes in USJ. People. Especially Mano Manito. He met Chi Feng once and copied Chi Feng's quirk. He knows the horror of Chi Feng quirk. According to the current situation, Chi Feng's strength is better than when he met him. Much stronger. No, we have to hurry. Kendo Itsuka shook his teeth and rushed out. The audience in the audience boiled instantly, and those who said that Chi Feng is a black bug were also open and speechless at the moment. They were all dumbfounded. When they look down from this angle, they can clearly see the full picture of the playing field, so that they can know how fast Chi Feng is, and the scene of the two huge robots quickly defeating them will not be erased in their hearts for a long time. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Even if it was the delivery of Shoto Todoroki, the son of Endeavor, there was no such a dark horse. Chi Feng was criticized. Chi Feng really understated and defeated two large robots. The professional heroes of some firms have been glaring, and there are already many companies that want to recruit Chi Feng into their firms. Wow. Present Mike suddenly screamed loudly, I didn't expect that 1A Chi Feng actually knocked down two robots with lightning speed. Is the robot hell so unbearable? Or just say this, is Chi Feng too strong? After experiencing the USJ incident, people who have experienced the higher realm personally, people who have experienced the truly terrifying fear, people who have tried their best to survive the desperate crisis, those experiences have turned into their spiritual food and helped them eliminate them. The confusion in my heart. Compared with the classmates of Heroes Class A, Chi Feng has been exposed to a wider world. The huge dark web of underground heroes has surfaced, and Chi Feng has become one of the seven saints. During this time, he has experienced after fighting and fighting, his Xingxing is no longer what he was when he first came to the island country. When Chi Feng reached the second level, Shoto Todoroki in front of him had already swept across the abyss rope like skating. Chi Feng didn't move. He glanced at the field. There were all mud pillars. Between these pillars, there were white ropes for people to climb over. Chi Feng can only use the second coming of Thor now, and the quirk level of the second coming of Thor has not reached LV5. If it reaches LV5, he can manipulate the magnetic field to form a magnetic field barrier, so that he can walk directly on the ground. But it doesn't work now. Regardless of his Thor's return or air manipulation, as long as he reaches the level of LV5, there will be a qualitative change, thereby unlocking more functions and use items. Now, he can only think of a way to pass. With so many viewers here, Chi Feng didn't want to expose his air-manipulated quirk, so he simply grabbed the rope with both hands and hung over. Although this speed will be much slower, Chi Feng is not in a hurry. After that, he is still waiting for Shoto Todoroki and the others. There is no way to reach the end so quickly. As soon as Shoto Todoroki got off the last rope, he saw Chi Feng crawling. His pupils shrank. This speed is too fast. Although he heard the broadcast of Present Mic before, Chi Feng defeated two giant robots, and it was only then how long it took him to reach the second level. Seeing this, the second level will be passed soon. Shoto Todoroki knows he must hurry up. What are you looking at half the face? Lousy won't wait for you. Bakugo Katsuki came to Shoto Todoroki at this time and rushed to the next level quickly. No, I forgot about him. Shoto Todoroki was startled, he almost forgot that there was a difficult guy like Bakugo. Come, finally here, an opportunity for self-expression, said the support sections faintly excitedly. My support equipment can finally shine. I can see it clearly. The national support companies, Wire, Arrow Hover, Soul. Famu Ming said to all distant audiences with his hands stretched out. Support Division. Uraraka Ochako looked at Famu Ming suspiciously, while Ishido Mina pointed to Famu Ming and said in shock, can I bring equipment to the competition? You heroes usually receive actual combat training, right? Faming spread his hands and said, to be fair, as long as it is our own developed equipment or combat suit, it can be used in the game. It should be said, for our support department, this competition is an excellent stage for companies to show their creativity and development technology. After this sentence, she found that the equipment around her waist shot out two iron weapons, which were firmly nailed to the opposite mud pillar, and then she suddenly jumped and flew away quickly, seeming not to worry about her at all. Equipment will go wrong. Chi Feng shook his head, and did not continue to pay attention to the things that revealed his sight. At this moment, he has already arrived on the other side. Shoto Todoroki and Bohao have already run away. In terms of speed, no one can pass me faster. Chi Feng grinned and rushed to the distance. The next place was the last checkpoint, the minefield. Well, the first echelon has reached the final level, and its true face is a large minefield. Present Mike's voice sounded, and Chi Feng suspected that if this guy yells louder, maybe the minefield itself exploded. Suddenly Chi Feng smiled. Is it minefield? That's right, although his quirk can't fully detonate the minefield with magnetic force, it can also affect some. This last level is his best venue. Chapter 100. The First Dark Horse Chi Feng. This arrangement is very careful. As long as you observe carefully, you can discover where the landmines are buried. Use your eyes and feet with all your strength. By the way, this type of landmine is dedicated to competition and is not powerful, but the sound and explosive effects are absolutely shocking. You will definitely be scared to pee. Present Mike said passionately into the microphone. It turns out that this is the type of obstacle that the higher the rankings, the more disadvantaged they are. To do this kind of trick, Shoto Todoroki also had to walk cautiously. He couldn't even run. It was obvious under his feet. Yes, traces of Rei being buried. At this time, Bakugo Katsuki had already rushed over, and the minefield could be ignored for him. After all, he could fly short distances. Shoto Todoroki turned his head and saw Bakugo Katsuki rushing towards him. How could this guy be so fast? I don't care about these little bugs. When Bakugo Katsuki came to Shoto Todoroki, he turned his head and said to Shoto Todoroki, you kid, don't make the mistake of declaring war. Shoto Todoroki's face changed slightly. Bakugo's quirk is really good here, but if he drives him in a hurry, these minefields are nothing. Wow. Ida Tenya ran across the minefield at a fast pace. Thunder exploded behind him and produced pink smoke, but because of his faster speed, the mine detonated after a second or two. Shoto Todoroki has already played with Bakugo Katsuki at this time. Chi Feng's speed was delayed for a while in the second level, and many people have already surpassed him again. When Chi Feng came to the minefield, many students have begun to try to enter the minefield, and some have been blown up. Get out of the way. Chi Feng suddenly shouted, I don't care if it affects you, especially the compatriots in the Heroes Division A class. With Chi Feng's loud shout, Even Shoto Todoroki and Bakugo Katsuki stopped fighting and turned to look at the beginning of the minefield. Some students who were hiding from the minefield also turned their heads to look at Chi Feng. What is this guy doing? Chi Feng is going to do something again. Ida Tenya's face changed, thinking of the usefulness of Chi Feng's quirk in this environment. It's scary to think about it. No, I have to rush to the end. Boom. At this moment, a cloud of pink smoke erupted in front of Chi Feng, rushing to the sky. Apparently someone detonated a large number of landmines. Read more at hotmtlnovel.zi. Chi Feng knew who did it. When he came here, Midoriya Izuku had already dug mines again. The speed was really fast. Originally, Chi Feng had already surpassed Midoriya, but Midoriya caught up again. As long as Chi Feng takes out the strength of the fourth layer of Chi training, there is no way to be surpassed, but Chi Feng does not want to. His current setting in the eyes of everyone is a thunder and lightning quirk, and there is no other strength. So in this way, it is normal to be overtaken by Midoriya. Big explosion in the rear. Present Mike suddenly screamed, "What's the matter with this power?" Seeing Midoriya Izuku flying out of the pink smoke, Present Mike cried out again, "I don't know if it was accidental or intentional." Class A, Midoriya caught up in the air and caught up. Does it mean that he can directly rush to the end? Smelly Jew, you are never allowed to rush in front of me. Bakugo Katsuki is too late to control Chi Feng at this time, and even Smelly Jew has surpassed him. How can his face survive? Although this is tantamount to opening a way for the people behind, it is not the time to worry about chasing soldiers. Shoto Todoroki's eyes finally frozen all the straight line in front and ran on it quickly, but he couldn't at the last minute. Failure. Chi Feng also knows that the game is getting bigger. He knew that he would leave before the Midoriya brother flew away. Now it seems that it is too late. A dazzling light flashed at the beginning of the minefield. Chi Feng's whole body rushed to the end like a thunder. All the mines on the ground hit by his thunder and lightning exploded, blowing up some students, some luck. The bad ones were blown out and eliminated, and some lucky ones were blown to the brink. Hey hey hey, Present Mike yelled again. A1 Chi Feng rushed to the finish line with absolute speed. Is this year's Dark Horse going to repeat a miracle? It's so fast, I'm afraid that the speed of Lightning Jack is no more than that. An underground hero said on the audience stage. Don't talk, Jack Lightning is the third king, how can it be compared with the students? A man on the side obviously knows Jack Lightning. Jack Lightning is the third king of Kyoto. He became the underground heroes with speed. It is said that his speed it is still rising, and I don't know how far it will reach in the future. But his speed is really fast. It's hard to imagine how a student has become so strong. Is this so good in the first grade? Someone couldn't believe it. Chi Feng keeps the speed at 60% as much as possible. This speed is already very fast in the eyes of outsiders. If it is faster, I am afraid that the professional heroes will not be able to match it. Damn it. Bakugo Katsuki had already seen a cloud of blue thunder rushing towards this side, and Midoriya Izuku had obviously seen it too, but now he was a little hard to control the iron plate under him. Swish. Chi Feng surpassed the three of them and lost directly into the passage. In addition to air manipulation to allow him to fly, Thor's return is okay, but it consumes a lot of physical strength. A sports festival, the first grade competition area, according to the situation in the prologue stage, who would have expected the final ending to be like this? Present Mike waved his hand and the game finally came to the last moment. At this moment, the first man to return to the sports festival. Present Mike paused, then exclaimed. It turned out to be the Dark Horse Chi Feng. Chi Feng was entangled in thunder and lightning, rolled 720 degrees in the air, and finally knelt on one knee, with one hand on the ground and suddenly raised his head, revealing his handsome face. What a pushy guy. Present Mike couldn't help but complain. Wow, so handsome. Some women in the audience couldn't help but yelled, are they so handsome in this grade? Even some professional female heroes are a little bit worried. This student who is many years younger than them gives them a feeling of heartbeat. Chi Feng also knew that he had pretended to be too much, and slowly stood up to put away the thunder and lightning on his body. The second place is Midoriya Izuku. At this moment, Midoriya has tried his best to rush out, but Chi Feng has already been one step ahead of him. At this moment, although Midoriya Izuku feels that he has succeeded, Chi Feng stands in front of him like a mountain. Midoriya Izuku knows that Chi Feng's strength is actually not difficult to win the sports festival championship, but he still wants to fight and prove himself. At least he has to let All Might know that Midoriya also has potential and perseverance.